Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome one, welcome all to SimSpeed TV, the 6th round of the Majors series for 2023. This is the Pacific region, and we go to Long Beach for the 6th round of the championship. Something that I've been looking forward to for a while, single-seater racing at one of the world's toughest and most iconic street circuits. Right on the west coast of the United States, Long Beach in the FIA F4 car. Not quite as fast as some of the other single-seaters that race around this place occasionally, but this should be an entertaining race regardless. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're bringing it to you live on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. I'm Reese Gardner. Jay Kennedy is with me in the comms box and directing behind the scenes, bringing you live pictures from the track. Jay, Long Beach is one of my favorite street circuits, and it's many people's favorite street circuit for very good reason. It's been around since the 1970s. It's hosted Formula One in the past, and it's also hosted American single-seater and sports car racing too. Everything's come here, and it's gone through a few layout changes over the years, but I think we've arrived at a pretty good point for racing with this layout.
100%. It's a very, very cool track, and yeah, it's quickly become one of my favorite street circuits as well because it's just so iconic, and yeah, it's very, very unique as well. Very narrow, very, very tough to pass, but I think the choice that the admins made to run with the FIA Formula 4 has been very well received in that it will enable a little bit more overtaking. We're going to see a bit of 2-wide action, 3-wide action potentially in places that you wouldn't normally get side-by-side action. So it's going to provide a very, very interesting race. As you said, this layout pretty much since the year 2000. Slight curb changes and walls being moved slightly, but other than that, the layout has been pretty standard since the start of the millennium, and it's been very, very well received the world over. Such a cool place.
Yeah, particularly down in the bottom left of the track there, or from your perspective, turns 2 and 3, the fountain section. That is a piece of track that has claimed many, and it definitely provides a nice visual. The drivers going right next to the hedge that goes around that roundabout. We've also got the long front stretch going along Shoreline Drive, and we have some nice wide sections of track too, particularly coming into turn 8, which should provide some good overtaking in that FIA F4. As you said, Jay, we're going to be racing around this circuit for quite some time tonight. Cars already out on track in the shootout qualifying session. We're deciding which drivers go into split 1 and 2. But before we get into the racing action, we should look at these championship standings. Christian Challoner is on top, but not by much. There's still a less than 100 points gap between he and Justin Morton at the top of the championship. Tom Abramatis chasing as well.
Yeah, it's pretty close the whole way through. I mean, it's still open. But yeah, Challoner has been a class of the field, but Morton, Abramatis have been there or thereabouts throughout the season as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting second half of the season. Very, very different sorts of racing coming up as well. So I'd be surprised to see if that gets a little bit mixed up as we come into the latter half of the season after the endurance break. So it's going to be a very, very interesting end. We look at the standings for the Legends. That is also very, very close at the top.
Yeah, certainly is. Daniel Stevens separated by 56 points there from Brian Barnes in the number 4. It's Dog Bear Red versus Middle Finger Racing at the top of the Legends standings for drivers over 50 years of age. We see that Brian McGreevy and Brian Scrivener are quite close as well, fighting for the spot of top Brian.
Lots of Brians in that list, isn't there? There's 4 Brians in the top 10. So if you're a Brian, you've got a good chance of making the top 10 of the Legends Championship in the Major Series. I reckon that's a pretty cool stat.
Yeah, I think it is too. Really awesome stuff. Be interesting to see what can happen between Mark Rediker and Wayne Hutchison as well. The Dog Bear Gold and Dog Bear Red drivers, they're separated by less than 10 points. So depending on how they go in this one, there could be a change between those 2 sub-teams in Dog Bear Red. So looking forward to seeing how that turns out. In the teams standings, it's a little bit less competitive at the top. Mega Racing Team over 300 points ahead of Forge Gold. So it remains to be seen whether or not one of the other teams can overcome that top spot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that changes or plays out over the next little bit. The Dog Bear guys, there's a lot of Dog Bear drivers in this session, so it seems like they may have just missed the setup window and are now going to find themselves in the realms of the shootout qualifying. What's going to happen with the shootout qualifying coming up next? We'll have 15 drivers fighting over 8 positions. Top 8 will go through to split 1. The bottom 7 will find themselves in split number 2 action. So can be a bit of a discrepancy in regards to championship points between those 2 splits as well.
Absolutely. Of course, the Majors supports a charity for every single round. This round we're supporting the All Clear Foundation, which is a charity started up by the Global Medical Response Organization. It's a public charity that helps first responders and emergency workers in terms of mental health, quality of life, because there's a lot of trauma associated with jobs like that. EMS, firefighters, police workers, etc. So definitely lend your support to this charity and help support the first responders and frontline workers in the United States. The allclearfoundation.org is where you can go to lend your support. So, at the moment, in shootout qualifying, the drivers' briefing is over, and we have drivers back out on track competing for the right to go in split 1 or split 2. Ray Partridge is on top at the moment by 3.3 tenths of a second. Brian Barnes in second. The number 8 and 9 both on top. Checking out the number 12 of Robert Northway, who's been quite a serious competitor in this series for Satellite Racing. He's had some bad luck in previous rounds, but I'm sure that he'll be able to get a good result here. He seems to be quick in just about any car he races. Yeah,
exactly right. He's usually pretty consistent as well. Of course, former champion of the international region of the Major Series. Reigning champion, from memory.
Yes,
winning it in
indeed.
2022. So he's got some good pace and very consistent across all disciplines that we will see within the series. Just punches out his personal best lap of this session. Increase any positions, but of course this is only the practice session, the 20-minute qualifying coming up in just a moment's time. The driver's just using this as a last-second shootout, get themselves comfortable with the car, the track, and the conditions.
Yeah, Northway demonstrating the fountain section there. Looking at the weather settings for this session, seems like the drivers are dealing with a pretty warm track at the moment. It's only a 21 degree Celsius air temperature, but man, 41 degree track temperature with the sun blazing in virtual California. I think the track's going to be a little bit slippery, so it's a good thing that the drivers are out there at the moment just sussing out how their cars drive in these kinds of conditions. Partridge going through the final corner, this very tight hairpin. It's the slowest corner on the circuit, one of the slowest corners in iRacing in general, so it takes a lot of guts to get that corner right for the run to the line.
One of those corners as well where there's no line that feels 100% perfect, because if you take it too shallow through the mid corner, you find yourself a little bit sluggish on exit. You take it too aggressive at the start, you find yourself lose too much time through the mid corner. It always feels like you could do something slightly different to find yourself a little bit more time when it comes to qualifying. But I think when it comes to racing, I think getting through the corner unscathed is the most important part. A little bit of a slide there through turn 6 for Partridge there. Sorry, turn 5, 6, and then a little sort of nothing kink here is 7. This has looked pretty smooth from Partridge. He's been pretty aggressive, and the car's just giving the right amount of slip. I was actually talking to a couple of drivers about that slip the other day, and saying that if you are too aggressive and slide the car a little bit too much, you will find that the tyres will go away before the end of a stint. So something to take into consideration. How much you slide the car through the corners will hurt you later on in a race stint. It was a little bit wide there from Partridge, but it still didn't look too bad at exit.
Yeah, of course. Seemed like he had to give a couple of stabs at the throttle to get that thing going, and 1 minute 20.9, that is not indicative of his true pace, but still a reasonable lap around the Long Beach street circuit. Chris Tito, meanwhile, in number 42 for Forge Silver, little bit of oversteer on entry into turn 6, but I think that's actually desirable around a track like this. You can see that he's really giving it a go, and demonstrating that a pointy car is one that you need for a street circuit like this. There's so many tight and sharp turns. You need a front end that responds quickly.
Yeah, 100% you do. You need to make sure that the car's responsive, and I think that goes with the slide as well that we're seeing from a lot of drivers. That's very, very nice through the hairpin. May have been a little bit quicker through the exit to run it a little bit wider, but it didn't look too bad. We'll see if he can improve on his current personal best, a 19.9. Another 1 minute 20.8. You need to find a little bit more ground, although the conditions are a little bit worse now than what they were when the drivers first joined the session around about an hour ago, so it will make it a little bit more difficult. One thing the drivers will have to consider, this is open qualifying, so they will have to be careful around other drivers out on the track. They will have to find themselves a little bit of space out there, make sure that they get a bit of clean track, don't impact any of the other drivers in the session as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a point of contention here. Of course, this being a street circuit, very narrow, walls are all around you at all times, and some of the corners come thick and fast in places. For a street circuit, I suppose Long Beach has a reasonable amount of space in between some of the corners, especially in the second half of the track, but particularly through that first sector, if you're right up behind someone, you could lose time. There's just not much space to maneuver around someone. So it's going to be really important for the drivers to give each other enough space, maybe leave a gap of about a second in between each other at best. And hopefully everyone will be able to get clean laps in. At the moment, though, Ray Partridge is the pace setter. Looking pretty close between Nick Kuhn and Dino Vela there. We see Jackson and Trosen very close as well, only covered by 600ths of a second. So I'm looking forward to this qualifying session. Have any drivers been sandbagging a little in the practice session? Will we see a surprise trying to catch Ray Partridge, who seems to have set the pace so far? The session's ticked over. We are in the shootout session. 20 minutes, open qualifying. The drivers have an unlimited amount of laps they can set in that 20 minutes. We'll see who gets on top as they all make their way towards the end of the pit lane. And as they demonstrate this pit lane exit, Jay, this is something that they're going to have to be careful of in the race. That pit exit, you see that blue line there? Well, you can't cross it you can't actually go to the left of it until you've completely crossed it. Otherwise, you will get a penalty. If they have to make a pit stop in the race, then they could get a penalty from iRacing for an unsafe exit. One of the more difficult pit exits to get right on the service.
100%. You feel like you're waiting forever before you can turn onto the racetrack proper. So it makes you wait and makes you wait and makes you wait longer and longer and longer until you can actually turn for turn one. So it also can propel you straight into the racing line as well if you come out with a couple of cars that are battling and find yourself in a little bit of trouble there too. So you've got to be a bit careful with pit exit. We will see pit stops throughout the race with a fuel restriction on these cars. We'll talk about that after we finish qualifying before we get into the race proper. But this is going to be a very, very interesting session. It's a nice start to the lap here for Nick Kuhn. We'll see what he can do.
All right, Nick Kuhn, first driver to come to the line and start a hot lap. And he's got Wayne Hutchison, Brian McGreevy, and Ray Partridge chasing him as well. They've left each other a good gap. I think all of these drivers will be able to make their way to the end of this hot lap without running into another car. Running into the wall, though, that's another matter entirely. Nice and smooth for Nick Kuhn through the fountain section. Try not to take too much of that curb, and already Kuhn's having some issues there. Bit too much rear end sliding, and it looks like that lap is done.
Yep. This lap won't be a competitive time. Might have to finish the lap to make sure he gets a banker lap on the timing screen, because very, very easy to ruin every single lap. I mean, 20 minutes feels like a long session, but if you make a mistake on every single run, very easy for that 20 minutes to just disappear in an instant. And Hutchison just behind. You'll be getting a tiny little bit of draft here as well.
Yeah, just a little bit down that back straight. Let's see how much time that has lent Wayne as he makes his way towards the hairpin, going through a parking lot on your way to Shoreline Drive. Lovely tight turn, and looks like Hutchison, like many drivers, isn't quite going all the way to the wall on the exit, but I could argue that a straighter exit is better than a wide one. 1 minute 20.4 for Hutchison. That is the quickest time at the moment as the times come streaming in. Right now, Ray Partridge less than a tenth behind. We'll see how the times improve as the tyres come up to temperature.
Barnes then Northway go to the top of the timesheet. We'll see what Chris Utito can do. Comes to complete his first flying lap. A little bit off the pace, but remember the top 8 is all you need. You only want to get in the top 8. Doesn't matter what your actual time is, as long as you're in that 8.
Yeah, at the moment, 8 drivers setting times, 9, sorry, as the times come streaming in. Nick Kuhn currently in 8th spot. What can Richard McClure do? Looks like that was a bit of a slow lap for him. He's going to have to give that one another go. Richard McClure, meanwhile, 1 minute 28.1. He's certainly shown that he has got a little bit extra to come through. Jake Fox to the line, 136.0. It looks like there's quite a few drivers here who have gone a bit slower on their initial lap just to make sure that the tyres are up to spec and get a banker in, try and get to the end of the lap. 1 minute 20.36 for Nick Kuhn. That's back up to second for him. Putting Barnes and Hutchison down to 3rd and 4th. Can Northway improve on his current quickest time? 1 minute 19.7. There we go. Now the gauntlet has been thrown down.
Far the quickest time we've seen in the session so far for Northway. You can almost feel comfortable with that time. Not quite yet, but you'll be fairly confident with that lap time.
Dino Vella to second, meanwhile. Look at that. That was good from him as Brett Trosen goes to 10th spot. His second time improving up from P12. Sebastian Jacks on the cusp here, 8th spot at the moment. He looks like has just put in a banker lap as Jake Fox goes for a spin coming into the final section of the course. Got to be aggressive on entry into that double left-hander, but very easy for the rear end to come away from you.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to lose a lot of ground there, a lot of time. Ryan Barnes has brought his car back to the pits, got a fresh set of tyres and going to go for another lap. So this is about to be the start of a flying lap for Brian Barnes. He'll be looking to get himself secured in that top half of the field. Currently wouldn't be feeling overly confident. I mean, he's only a tenth and a half away from the cutoff spot, so he's probably not feeling 100% settled yet. Car exiting the pits as Robert Northway goes faster again. What Barnes can do here.
Almost matching Barnes as Barnes goes through the fountain section. Looked like a bit of understeer there. Across the fountain. Yep, he tagged the wall. That's going to be the end of that one for him. Chris Tito and Jonathan Dance improved to 2nd and 4th respectively. That's some good showing from those drivers, but Robert Northway remains the only driver to set a time in the 119 bracket, and he's only 200ths off the time that Brian Barnes set in practice. So we know that Barnes can compete for the top spot there. Will he be able to actually get the lap in this 20-minute session? Kuhn, meanwhile, trying to improve on 5th spot. What he needs is only a tenth of a second, and he'll be able to get up into 4th place, put Jonathan Dance down to P5. The run to the line then, as the driver behind goes into the pits. Kuhn alone on track on the front stretch as he sets a 1 minute 20.1. There we go. That's good.
Should feel maybe not 100% secure, but a little bit more confident about that time now as Ray Partridge. He won't be confident with that time. 121 won't improve. Brian Scrivener can do. He needs to find a little bit of ground. Does. Not enough though.
Yeah, 120.6. That's only good enough for 11th at the moment. So right now, Sebastian Jackson is the one who we need to look at to see if he can get through. Jonathan Dance, meanwhile, goes up to 2nd spot. He joins Robert Northway in the 1 minute 19s. Good stuff.
Very nice lap there. If Sebastian Jackson can move up, not improve.
Yeah, not quite. 1 minute 20.6. He set a 1 minute 20.5 as his fastest lap. Brian McGreevy, meanwhile, he's coming to the start of a hot lap here, and we can see that in the FIA F4, you have all of the requisite information on the dash for a single-seater, up into 6th gear, down to 3rd for turn 1. Some interesting gearing on this FIA F4 car, which drives pretty much like an oversized go-kart from my experience. It's a very interesting car to drive. You have to try and push it through the corners, get a little bit of a slide on, and that will get you the pace, but it's all about striking that balance.
The car that really is tough to find the 100% balance with too, isn't it? Because you can find yourself so close to the limit, and then you make the smallest adjustment or the smallest change in your driving style and you're past the limit. There's a very, very small window where it feels 100% perfect. So a little bit of compromise in regards to how you drive the car and you set up the car as well. So it's going to be interesting when we get into the longer stage of the race, how drivers have compromised in regards to setup and driving style as well, won't it?
Yeah, of course, it is open setup in this series, and there are obviously a lot of settings you can tweak. As wow, Fox up to P3. He is just on the verge of getting into the 119s with that time. Time did he set in practice? Actually didn't set a lap in practice. Yeah. Neither did Jonathan Dance. So this is the first true indication that we're seeing of those two drivers' pace. Jackson, meanwhile, well, he's gotten up into 8th spot, and well done too. But he's immediately put out by Wayne Hutchison, who improves to a 1 minute 20.255. Oh, dearie me. Let's see if any of the drivers down low can respond to that. Barnes being one of them, trying his best to match his practice pace, being very aggressive over that first curb in the double left-hander. Nice and smooth through the hairpin, wind on as much steering lock as you dare, and that was a lovely straight exit. Is this going to be the 119 that Brian Barnes has been looking for? Oh, he's just going to set a 120.1. That is an improvement to 7th spot, but not quite enough to get near what he was able to run in the practice session.
Wayne Hutchison now the driver at risk. Jake Fox goes faster again. Robert Northway looks like he might be done as well. He's decided, maybe not has decided to park it, but he's having a couple of tech issues, but I think it should be okay for him. What can Wayne Hutchison do? Will he be able to find that last little bit now? He needs a 10th.5 to get himself back up into that magic top 8. Remember at the start of the session we thought he might have been okay, but now he's in a little bit of trouble as Dino Valla now up into P2.
And Jonathan Dance up to P3. Hutchison, meanwhile, sets a 120.217. And, well, that's good enough for 9th. Yep, he just needs another 10th of a second to put Nick Kuhn out of the top 8.
Scrivener about to start a flying lap in the number 70. This livery feels very, very much at home at Long Beach, does it not?
Absolutely, it does. A bit of a players Greg Moore tribute scheme here. Always good to see the blue and white out in an American single-seater race. Absolutely love that livery. And let's hope that Brian Scrivener will be able to get that livery up into the top 8 so we can see it in the Split 1 race. We'll be broadcasting very shortly. Looked like a nice run through the first sector for Scrivener. Coming up to the Sector 2 line now. We'll see if that's an improvement for him. But down the back straight he comes. He's only got a few more corners to go, but these corners are some of the most important on the entire course. It's all about that run to the line, gearing up for the final hairpin and the run out of it. He's keeping it stable through these couple of corners. And that looked like a good amount of pace carried through the hairpin, and he ran it all the way to the wall. So he is hoping that this is going to be an improvement for Brian Scrivener, who's down in 13th at the moment, but unfortunately still 2/10 off his PB.
Reeves just starting his flying lap now as well. We'll see what he can do on this one. Got to find a fair bit of ground as well to get himself close to that cutoff line. Current cutoff is a 120.12. I think if you do a 19, you're going to feel okay. If you're still in the 120s within the next 3 minutes, you might be starting to get a little bit nervous. 119 might be okay. That cutoff line does feel like it's getting very, very tight though, doesn't it? It's only going to take one of these drivers from outside to jump into that top 10 or top 8, sorry, and everyone is going to start feeling very nervous about it.
Yeah, I mean, the drivers in the practice session would have been obviously pushing for fast times, but it's not as important to get a fast time in practice as it is in this session, so drivers might be able to find a little bit more out there and basically up the bar, so to speak. McGreevy out of the hairpin. Looks like this is going to be a time in the 1 minute 20s. High 1 minute 20s, even low 121s for McGreevy. Just hasn't been able to get close to that 120.5 that he said earlier. But if he can improve on that by a further 3/10, then at least he'll be able to get a little bit further up in these standings. Coming up to the 5-minute mark of the session, and the number 17 of Wayne Hutchison still yet to break into the 119s as he did in practice, 119.91, but we'll see if he can improve on that. Jackson, meanwhile, into the final hairpin. It's always awesome seeing car behavior coming into this hairpin, but it looks like that's the end of a run for Jackson, demonstrating the pit entry here, which is just as difficult, if not more difficult, than the exit. Very difficult to sight your way in there.
It's very difficult to get yourself sighted, for sure. It's a really tricky pit entry. It also requires a little bit of communication with drivers around you, because if you do not communicate, you may find yourself getting run over very, very quickly. So you do have to be a little bit careful when it comes to pit entry. We'll talk about that at some point over the next little bit as well.
Oh, bit of oversteer there for Hutchison. He's not going to be able to break into the top 8 with that kind of running through the corner. At the moment, though, seems we haven't, aside from Jake Fox earlier, we haven't seen any big incidents from these drivers. It just shows that they've been doing a lot of practice in these cars and have worked them out nicely.
Been a lot of practice been happening for everyone. All been working hard through the week. In times this is Nick Kuhn jumps up into position number 7. Brian Barnes still in 8th. One driver that we did see jump up that we hadn't mentioned as well, Brett Trosen, got up into 9th position. He's only a couple of hundredths of a second now behind that cutoff time. So Brian Barnes now in the hot seat in P8. He'll be starting to feel a little bit nervous about his time.
Yeah, that he will. Barnes in the dog bear number 9. So see if this time has anything in it for him. Sector 1 time looks all right. Not sure about Sector 2, but coming up to the line now, will this be an improvement for Barnes? Will he keep himself safe? 1 minute 20.0 there for Brian Barnes. He gets up into 7th place, and now Nick Kuhn is the one who needs to be looking over his shoulder on board here with Trosen coming through the second sector of the circuit. Have a look at his steering inputs. Look at how finely he's controlling this car through these corners. You have to be exact at a circuit like this. There's no runoff.
Oh.
And, well, just as I say that, tags the wall coming onto the back stretch. That will invalidate that time. He'll have to go out again, but will he have the time?
They will be able to finish their flying laps that they start, so they still have a little bit of time. But if that car's damaged, he's not going to have a lot of time to get heat cycle through the tyres. Wayne Hutchison doesn't improve on his lap, so he's still struggling. McGreevy just finishes his lap, doesn't improve as well. So Richard McClure looks like he might be done as well. So this cutoff time for Nick Kuhn, it might be enough. He's got half a tenth of a second ahead of Brett Trosen. Is it going to be enough? Trosen's really got to push on this next attempt, starting that potential final run now.
All right, Trosen, try and keep it straight. Coming into the fountain section, avoid the wall on the exit. And this corner here it's very wide on entry and exit too, but you got to be careful not to take too much of that curb on the inside, because man, it will absolutely mess you up in a car with firm suspension like this one. Just negotiating the bumps. He's controlling that rear end very nicely, is Brett. All he needs is a tenth of a second, and he will be in the top 8 and into the top split.
Sounds easy, doesn't it? Sounds so easy, but it's a lot more difficult than that. Just on 200 kilometers an hour down the back straight. Pull it up for Firestone Bend, through the car park, up to the hairpin.
Oh, he was a little bit narrow on entry there.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Oh, all right. I don't know if that's going to be it there for Brett, but he will still have, yeah, he will still have one more lap, but the exit here onto the front stretch will be compromised as a result of that, and this is the highest speeds you reach on this track, so I don't know if Trosen will be able to improve on the time anyway, but he'll give it a red-hot go. Scrivener with a lovely little entry into the first couple of corners here. but he's just gotten a bit of understeer on through the fountain. Barnes, meanwhile, improving to 4th, gets into the 119.9s finally after however long. Trosin will keep following him here on this lap. Can he get the number 4 into the top 8? Looks nice and controlled again through this wide section of the circuit. Oh, a bit too much oversteer onto the backstretch, though. That might be it.
Yep, I think that could be it for him. He's pushed hard, but a little bit too hard in the end, and I think that'll be the end. And yeah, Sector 2 time, it did pop up for me. It did not look like it was going to be good enough. I think he's actually backed out of it a little bit too. He's not happy, and he's going to just miss out. Unfortunate for him. Sebastian Jackson, I did notice, crossed the line with 2 seconds to spare, so he will be our last driver post a lap time. McGreevy did come across the line as well, but did not improve. Sebastian Jackson will be the last driver to finish a time, and I tell you what, he's committed as well.
Yeah, looked like, again, a bit too much oversteer onto the back stretch. That'll reduce his ultimate straight line speed here. Will he be able to improve on that 1 minute 20.2? He's already wide through Firestone Corner. I think that he's just giving up time here through the final sector, and, well, that's going to do it. Unfortunately, too much oversteer. Gets on the brakes into the wall, and that's going to be the end of the session. So, top 8 from Robert Northway down to Nick Kuhn will go into split 1, and it was only half a tenth in it between Kuhn and Trosin in the end. That shows you how close and competitive this round is.
Yeah, incredibly tight the whole way through, and it's going to be an interesting race. We've got a lot of action still to come. It's a very, very long race. Over 85 laps of action here, 1 minute 20 lap time. The brain power that is going to be used from these drivers in this one is going to be very, very intense. Brain power from us is also going to be intense too, race. It's going to be a long race, but it's going to be a very, very fun one.
Yep, we're going to be running the full length of the Grand Prix of Long Beach in the midst of all of this. Well, as the drivers get into the race server, we're going to step aside briefly here on SimSpeed TV. When we come back, it's going to be that full 85 laps of action from the Long Beach Street Circuit, round 6 of the Pacific region of the Majors Series.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
You're watching SimSpeed TV on YouTube, Facebook, and Kick. This is the 6th round of the Majors Series Pacific region. The Grand Prix of Long Beach in the FIA F4 car. We're going racing for 85 laps in just a few minutes' time. It's going to be a long and tough race for all of these drivers who will come out on top. Here is the format. We have a fuel cap of 25 litres, or about 6.5 gallons. That gives drivers 30 to 31 laps to a tank of fuel. So we're thinking there's going to be 2 pit stops in this race, and as always, there's going to be a spare car available, so if you end up damaging it, then you will have an opportunity to keep going. Reese Gardner here with you, Jay Kennedy inside the commentary box alongside me, and also in the director's chair. Well, Jay, the top 8 shootout definitely showed us what kind of pace these drivers can carry, but one lap pace doesn't mean much when you got to negotiate this circuit 85 times.
One thing we did see that was very, very evident was how much tyre wear is going to play an impact. I didn't think it was going to play as big an impact in this race as... Well, we sort of got a little bit of information about it, but I think it showed very, very quickly how much the tyres are going to play a factor in this race. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it does impact the race. Hopefully it doesn't impact it in a negative way. I think tyre conservation is going to be way more important than some drivers may have ever considered in their entire life, especially in such a low-powered car. I mean, the Formula 4 car only gets up to about 220 kilometers an hour to 140 odd miles an hour. So it's not a fast car when you consider other cars that are here, but the tyre conservation that you need to use here is a lot bigger than anyone may have considered.
Yeah, and it's not so much in terms of pace and degradation. It's more about how hard you push the tyres over the course of a stint. Because if you slide too much, if you spin up the wheels on exit, then the tyres will overheat, and then the car will become a lot more slidey, which you don't really need around a circuit like this. You do want some good response from the front end. A little bit of oversteer in the rear is desirable around a track with as sharp turns as this one, but you don't want the rear end sliding everywhere. Look at those temperatures. It is hotter than it was in the shootout by 3 degrees, so the drivers will be dealing even more with tyres that potentially overheat, and if you push too hard, they will not last a full stint.
Yeah, you're going to have to be very, very careful, and we know as well, doing some numbers, that if it is 30 to 31 laps to a stint, 2 pit stops gives you 90 laps, so you've only got a 5-lap window. Do you go 2 laps early in those 2 pit stops and do 27, 28, or do you do how do you compromise that pit stop dilemma on when you take your tires and things like that? So yeah, do you then push hard in that first stint to try and get a bit of track position and only do a 25 lap stint, or do you really compromise and do 24 and fuel save? It's going to be an interesting compromise as we come into the race in only 45 seconds.
Yeah, oh man, traffic's going to be a problem as well on a street circuit like this, as you end up getting closer to cars behind, and you will have to make sure that when you pit, you come out in a gap so that you aren't compromised on pace too much. You don't want to get held up behind anyone, because that will cost you valuable time. Well, at the moment, Justin Morton, the pace setter in practice, 1 minute 19.0, and championship leader Christian Challoner in second spot. This is going to be quite a fun race, and Morton versus Challoner at the top will certainly be something to behold. But everything comes to a close. The checker flag flies in practice. On Zoom, we've got joining us Dan Stevens in the top left, Justin Morton in top right, and Gavin Barber down the bottom there. Gavin and Daniel, both teammates at Middle Finger Racing, so they'll be trying their best to coordinate this race going forward. Rolling start for this one behind the pace car. On the front row, it's going to be Christian Challoner and Tom Katsadonis, who was definitely one of the drivers to watch in the Speedway 500 earlier in the year. Tom Abramatis, and Travis Walling will line up on the second row. And then we have Austin Peterson and Justin Morton rounding out the top 6. Eric Staropoli getting into the top 10 starts alongside Scott Kimbrough in the number 573. Scott Newton, who's a bit of an open wheel specialist, he's going to start alongside Sam Harper. 2 very quick drivers there. They might be in contention later on. And Brenton Foster and Nathan Dowd will round out the top 12.
There we go, back to Dan Stevens and Gab Barber. Middle Finger Racing blocking out that row. Go back to Garen Batten and Jimbo Pfeiffer on the next row. Dane Burns and Brian Bennett on row number 9. Row 10 will be Nick McMillan and Shane Vickery. Go back to Stephen Banks and Mike Braun on row number 11. Row 12 will be Joshua Robertson and Robbie Bradbury.
Cody Richardson's going to line up alongside Jake Fox. We are in the territory of the drivers that made it into this session from the shootout earlier. Ray Partridge and Robert Northway, 28th and 29th. Ray Partridge in 28th with Robert Northway joining Brian Barnes on the row behind to round out the top 30. And then we have Dino Vella and Nick Kuhn, 31st and 32nd. Final spot on the grid taken up by Chris Yatito in the number 42. We are starting to get going here already. Drivers going to the line. Christian Challoner controlling the start here, and the throttle is down. We are racing at the Grand Prix of Long Beach, and already we're forming a couple of rows here coming up to the first turn. At the moment, it looks like Katsadonis with the better run off the start, but they're going to make it 3 wide into turn 1 just about. The number 90 of Travis Walling almost trying to get in there. A little bit of a tag to the tyre wall for Katsadonis. Has to give up the lead to Challoner once more as they make their way through the fountain section. Got to be clean through here. Austin Peterson almost getting into the wall.
Jake Fox has lost a little bit of ground as well, but it looks like we've made it through relatively smooth and okay. So great to see that we've made it through. I'm impressed with how well they've done there.
Yeah, as am I. Challoner, though, hasn't quite run away with this. Katsadonis is pressuring him as they're side-by-side further back in the field. Number 72 of Austin Peterson trying to overcome Eric Staropoli. That is position gain there for Eric. Peterson down 2 spots. Abramatis down 1 spot. At the moment, the most positions gained in the field is 3 from Dino Vella down in P28. Shows you how much of a deadlock this first lap has been around such a tight track as they go to the hairpin for the first time. Have to come in here single file, and it looks like there's already been some contact.
A little bit of contact there. I believe that was Dane Burns potentially. Still side by side right at the back of the field, but we've made it through lap 1, and all 33 starters are going to complete the lap with every single part of their car attached, albeit a little bit bent and broken, but everyone's made it.
Only just. The concrete canyon smiling upon our field today. Christian Challoner and the rest of the top 4 starting to break away from the field now. Oh dear. Well, there we go. That's our first crash, and that looks like on the way down towards turn 6. Oh no, that's in the fountain section. My apologies. Wow, that was pretty big there, but it looks like they've all made their way out of it. Robbie Bradbury is continuing on from that, but he has lost his rear wing and is crabbing something fierce. So he will definitely have to take his spare car. Bradbury came up upon that incident, and it's just really unfortunate to see that Shane Vickery, Nick McMillan, and Brian Bennett were involved in quite an epic incident.
Seeing the incident now, so we'll bring up a replay in just a second, but it was a big hit for all of those drivers involved. Front of the field, Challoner has broken a tiny little gap now.
Yeah, that he has, and he gets into the 119.5s, but we see that Katsadonis is continuing to pressure him as we check out this incident here. So Shane Vickery, unfortunately, getting into the wall, and oh wow, that's actually further down the track from what we saw. Gavin Barber and Jimbo Pfeiffer coming together, but it was all started off by, I believe it was Vickery hitting the tyre bundle. number 81, unfortunately. But everything seems to have worked out from there. Again, I've gotten it wrong once more. Keep missing out who exactly was involved in that. It was Brian Bennett and Nick McMillan, sorry. Bennett hitting the outside wall coming out of the first corner.
Aaron Batten also, he gave that wall a big hit, and I think he may have been the one that started it here. Watch. So that was Barber that hit the wall as well. Yeah, that was Batten that started that with a hit on the wall. So good news is that everyone has been into the pits to get their spare car and will get back out into the race. But Challoner, Katsadonis, Walling and Abramatis broken a little bit of a gap from everyone else. Austin Peterson pulled a little bit of a gap as well. Or, sorry, lost a little bit of ground to Justin Morton ahead. So the top 5 have broken a little bit of a gap, and then everyone else is starting to group up together.
Yeah, this is the stage of the race where drivers who have lost a couple of positions really get into the rhythm of their race and start pressuring those in front of him. This is the fight for 8th that we're looking at the moment. Foster about half a second to a second ahead of Scott Kimbrough, who has got Sam Harper and Scott Newton chasing him. And we can never discount Sam Harper or Scott Newton in cars like this. Harper is a pretty versatile driver. He's won quite a few rounds of the Major Series in the past in many different types of machine. But the open wheel specialist in this group is Scott Newton. Getting a view here on the number 8, meanwhile, of Ray Partridge. That's a spin at the fountain section. And it looks like he's gotten away with it without too much damage. And no. Unfortunately, he tried to get going a little too early, and that's involved a couple of team cars there. Unfortunate for the 2 involved. But things keep moving forward here for Sam Harper. He's actually gotten a little gap on Scott Newton at the moment. Everyone closing up a bit here in this first section of the lap. Foster actually losing a bit of time somewhere around the previous lap. That gap is a lot smaller than it was.
He's lost a fair bit of ground, hasn't he? He's about 0.8 of a second. It's now down to pretty much nothing, 2 car lengths. So he's going to have to be a little bit more careful. It's only going to take 1 slide. And in this corner here, I found from watching, this corner's been the one that's been catching drivers out the most. They seem to get a bit of a slide on, and that wall creeps up very, very quickly on the outside. So see probably a few more drivers hit that wall at the exit. Turn number 7 by the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. You can try and get a good entry, but it's one of those sections of track that starts out really wide and then narrows out. Someone going off at the hairpin there. I think that was Robbie Bradbury, who's a lap down in 27th spot. He went way too deep into the hairpin, letting Austin Peterson and Eric Starapoli by. Unfortunately, we're already seeing drivers having to make way for others early on thanks to those early incidents. Morton, meanwhile, chasing down the number 20 of Tom Abramatis here. Looks like Walling, Katsadonis and Challoner have broken away from these 2.
See how much wheel work there actually is going on as well. Probably a little bit more evident watching the real wheel work as opposed to the in-sim wheel work. He's working that wheel really hard, isn't he?
Yeah, he's putting a lot of effort into trying to get that car through the corners, try and feel out the front grip. We saw the onboards in the shootout session, and all of those drivers were very smooth and very gradual on the wheel, but these drivers up the top, they are making those minor adjustments all the way through the corner, just trying to keep the grip up as they make their way through these very not grippy turns. Of course, this is a street circuit. There's normal traffic on these roads throughout most of the year, and so a bit of a different construction of tarmac. There's a lot of bumps, etc. Got to think about that when you're setting up a car And when you're making your way around this circuit, you don't have as much grip available to you as you do on a purpose-built racetrack, as they're almost diffuser to front wing through the fountain section. Abramatis is definitely looking over his shoulder at all of this, and this fighting that they're doing is starting to bring the chasing pair into contention. Peterson and Staropoli. We'll see if they can make an impression on these guys.
Yeah, they've closed in a fair amount fairly quickly, haven't they? Staropoli was one of the fastest drivers on track last lap by in position number 7, so the only drivers faster than Staropoli last lap were the 3 that have broken away out in front. So yeah, this is turning into a very, very quick 4-car battle for P4, so don't be surprised if that is a true nose-to-tail 4-car fight within the next 2 laps.
Yeah, I'm looking at Morton. He keeps getting a good slipstream on Tom Abramatis down the back stretch, but he's just not able to capitalize on it. There's not much space when they get into the braking zone. He has to lift off and fight another day. Bit more of a slipstream available here down the front stretch as Dan Stevens comes in for a pit stop early. That's very early. He might have damage.
I'm surprised I can't see anything.
Oh, he's got a meatball flag.
Oh, he does too.
Mechanical black flag for Dan Stevens. He has hit the wall hard somewhere.
Yep. Just noticed that as well. Joshua Robertson just behind him as well. He's also had to bring the car in.
Exit of turn 1.
Going to see that a lot throughout this race. Very, very easy to do.
Yeah, shame there for Dan Stevens. Looks like he just went into turn 1 too hot and clobbered the concrete barrier. If you hit the tyre bundles, then you don't have as much of a bad time, because obviously rubber tyres are softer than concrete. But yeah, there's no sort of spring effect on these concrete walls. He did tag the tyre bundle a little bit, but it was that contact with the front right with the concrete that really did it for him.
It didn't propel him out towards the middle of the track. It's almost sort of flung the rear of the car into the middle of the track, which forced the front of the car back into the wall. So unfortunate for him. Here's Challoner Katsadonis. They're starting to come up on some more lap traffic as well. I think 33 small cars around this track. It's going to be plenty of room for everyone, but it's only taken 8.5 laps, and there's true lap traffic already. Just based on how fast these guys are and how small these cars are, the track will naturally bring everyone together very, very quickly.
Yeah, the pace that this top 2 are showing, Challoner and Katsadonis, they're leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. It's only a few tenths. All problem for Staropoli. Oh dear, that's a spin there at the exit of, I think, turn 5. And he has towed that back to the pits. That looked like a pretty heavy hit for the driver who was running in 7th spot. Let's see what happened to him. Did he collect too much curb? He did.
Oh.
Just induced understeer and head on into the barrier.
On the exact same sort of thing as what we just saw for... He's done a good job to back that up too. What we saw for Dan Stevens there, didn't he? Have a look at this too. Peterson has caught onto the back of Justin Morton. We said that it was going to be a 4-car battle, but obviously Staropoli has had that incident. But now it is a true 3-car fight right at the front. As fastest lap, Christian Challoner.
Now, I was going to say, leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of the field. No one's been able to set a 1:19.5 yet. Apart, of course, from Travis Walling, who set a 1:19.599 a few laps ago. But these are the guys we'll be focusing on at the moment. Abramatis running 1:20.3. Morton 1:20.2 on the last lap, and a 1:19.98 for Austin Peterson. He is on a charge right now. Unfortunate that Eric Staropoli hasn't been able to join these guys thanks to his incident, but we will see whether or not Austin Peterson is able to challenge these two coming onto the back stretch. Lost a little bit of time in the first sector, and now the slipstream again for Justin Morton. He wasn't able to pass Abramatis last time, but he's going to have a look. Coming into Firestone Corner, Abramatis gives him room, and outside line seems to not be as bad as you think it is through that section of the course. Bit of a lock-up on the way into the hairpin as well for Abramatis. Morton is definitely smelling blood here.
He doesn't look like he's got it, though. He hasn't got the exit of the hairpin quite nailed down. He's a little bit slower before they get to the start-finish line. He's now starting to gain more speed using the draft, really be able to throw up the inside. He's not close enough.
Yeah, at a circuit like this, you can't go for dives. If they were at a purpose-built track with a lot of runoff, you might see a lot more daredevil maneuvers. But with there being very little, if any, runoff at a circuit like this, you have to be alongside the car you're chasing if you want to try and attempt a move. Abramatis a little bit wide there out of turn 5, and well, it doesn't seem to have hurt him too much. Seems like those wider exits aren't that bad at a track like this. It allows you to sort of keep your track position into the next corner, but this is where Morton has been getting the run. Shane Vickery pulls over to let this group by. Vickery, of course, running a lap down. He was one of the cars involved in incidents earlier. And Morton, he keeps trying, doesn't he? He just doesn't get close enough to Abramatis to have a lunge into the braking zones.
Abramatis is aware of what's going on, though, isn't he? He knows that I've got to be 100% perfect at every single apex, every single corner, every single exit. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this spot. And I think when Morton does get the move done, he's just going to break away and pull away. So I think Abramatis really has to work hard. The other side of this, too, is Morton playing this wrong? Should he be using this opportunity to save a bit of fuel and do that longer stint now and be able to smash the tyres in those second and third phases of the race? This is where you can start to play those strategy games when you're in this sort of situation. Oh, big slide from both.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, yeah, we're in the 12th lap of this race at the moment, and you got to make the tyres last about 30 laps. So I think the rubber on these cars is approaching the point where things are getting a bit difficult. Let's see what the braking zone is like this time.
I was going to say, interesting, Peterson keeps dropping back from these guys, and then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, that's a huge moment from Morton. I can see the zoom feed.
His tyres are gone.
Yeah, his tyres are gone. I can see him on the zoom feed right beside me. He is struggling big time. He's not happy either with how the tyres are behaving.
Yeah, he's conversing with someone in the background, trying to suss out what's going on here. He lost valuable time to Abramatis there. I think he might have been pushing the tyres too hard in this early stint, trying to focus on track position, and now he's left himself open to an attack from Peterson, who's right on the back of him coming into turn 1, just kissing the outside barriers in turn 1. Easy does it. Another slide through the fountain section. Oh, look at how hard he's pushing.
He's on that limit, isn't he? Or is he past the limit?
I reckon he's just past it at this stage. Oh, we got some bad news considering Ray Partridge. Looks like he is unfortunately dropped from the server. That's a technical issue for Partridge.
He's had an issue before that too.
Has he? Oh, dear. Yeah, I mentioned in the shootout you don't want to take that curb too much, and that's what happens when you do.
Daniel Stevens also has received a second mechanical black flag as well, so I think he might be day done.
Yeah, just really unfortunate for
quite
a few drivers so far. Really? Exit of turn 1.
Yep, exit of turn 1 again. Sorry, Dan, for showing this.
And in the exact same way, too. Oh, man. That's a real shame. Well, we probably won't be seeing any more of Dan Stevens in this round of the Majors Series, but we've still got plenty of racing to go. We're only 14 laps into this 85-lap race. And it looks like this battle is closed up again. Seems like Morton has just backed off a tiny bit, allowed the tyres to come back to him, and now he's starting to gain a bit of time on Abramatis again.
We're going to see this ebb and flow a lot throughout this race, I feel. It's going to be one of these races where if you can conserve the tyres, you're going to have something to push with, but if you push too hard, you're going to be able to burn the tyre, or going to burn the tyres up. And we've seen it already. We're not even halfway through the first phase of the race, and we've seen it aggressively. What was it, 12 laps, and we're already seeing Justin Morton's tyres absolutely screaming for murder. So it's interesting how much this race dynamic will chop and change as the tyre evolution changes throughout the race too.
Yeah, it's going to be the next 10 to 15 laps here on this stint that really tell the story of what the tyres are going to act like when they've been worn down. And that will inform drivers' decisions for the next 2 stints of the race. A little bit wide on entry into turn 1 for Tom Abramatis, but gathered it up on the exit nicely.
This was Morton earlier. Sorry, Reese. This was Morton earlier. Remember we saw that big moment?
Oh.
Now, and you also saw just ahead Abramatis have a huge slide as well. I've just gone back and watched that exact same slide from Abramatis at the same time there. Now, you saw Morton's slide. It looked really aggressive, really intense. Abramatis looked like he was sliding even more, but watch his wheel work. Tom Abramatis looks like he's got this a lot more under control. Hardly even turned the wheel. He's got it so composed.
He actually straightened it out to correct the slide. That's definitely shows how much of a... Oh, there we go. Finally, Morton gets by Tom Abramatis with the run down the back stretch and is up into 4th place. How long will that last, though, with how hard he has pushed his tyres? Slight slide, on the exit of the hairpin. But, yeah, I think that really goes to show how much Abramatis was in tune with his car there, just able to correct that slide and still keep the trajectory the same through the corner. He's got the slipstream, but he's not going to try and pass Morton back right away.
I think Abramatis is content to just let Morton go. He knows that he's going to cook the tyres and be able to get him back. I think he's just content. Hey, let him go. Let him fight. He might push too hard and put it in the wall.
Yeah, he might be counting on Morton trying to build a gap here and end up pushing his tyres too hard as a result, or get into the wall as he kissed the outside barrier for just a moment there.
An interesting battle that is now unfolding, but as I did predict as well, Morton, the second he's got through, starting to pull a tiny little gap. So gap is starting to stretch. We're looking at Garen Batten here. He's just lost a spot to Cody Richardson. He's now up into position number 13. So there's still some battles going on out on track, not just that one battle that we were watching for. This battle also is happening out on track at the moment. Kimbrough and Dowd together.
Yeah, looking good, these two. A couple of very striking liveries, as that's a new fastest lap from Tom Katsadonis, who's chasing Christian Challoner, 119.4. The gap still at about half a second. You mentioned Garrett. Yeah, I mean, these guys are absolutely neck and neck, aren't they? Really well-matched pair at the front of this field. We'll see how much traffic decides that. Batten losing positions, and have a look at his front wing. He's actually got some damage to that car he's picked up somewhere.
Yeah, there's supposed to be another part to that front wing, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the same on the left as it is on the right. Obviously that is not the case for his car.
It's a little bent. And actually, it's been that way for a few laps. He has been losing time for, I'd say, for at least 5 laps from here.
Yeah, he's been losing a fair bit of ground over the last little while. And Richardson's just made a mistake as well. Yeah, it's continuing on. Back to this battle we've been watching and been mesmerised over for a little while. Interesting to note that... what's happened to... Brendan Foster's just dropped a little bit of ground. Remember, he was closing that gap down, but he's now out to 2.5 seconds. He's lost a fair bit of ground, and Sam Harper's closing back in.
Yeah, I think that might have been either a slide or a tap of the wall that has put him back.
He was only about a second or so back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was getting really close to those guys, but unfortunately, that's put paid to that battle for now. He'll probably have to wait for the pit cycle to really start gaining some time. Talking about Garen Batten, meanwhile, there is actually more to that. He has had that damage since lap 7. I've gone back to have a look at it. At Firestone Corner on lap 7, Robbie Bradbury spun and Batten went into him. So that's the reason why Garen Batten is walking wounded right now.
Did you actually see that incident from Robbie Bradbury? And didn't think too much of it, but now that you mention it, I've just found that incident. So yeah, see just ahead, you'll see Bradbury's around, and then bang, it's teammates together.
Heavy hit. Yeah, very heavy hit between the Forge Energy teammates there. So now Batten, I think, is just trying to deal with that damage for now.
Yeah.
He will be losing time, but he'll at least be able to take his spare car at the pit stop and not lose time. Have a look at this, meanwhile. Seems like Dwayne Burns letting these drivers by. Burns down in 22nd position and a lap down. He was one of the drivers involved in the incidents in the opening laps, so everyone making his way past him cleanly on the way into turn 1. And Morton, Abramatis and Peterson back together once more here. They're going to be chasing them down. I'm thinking about Travis Walling, actually, because Walling, running in 3rd spot, has run a little bit slower than the chasing trio in the past few laps. Barber, meanwhile, the sole MFR car remaining in this race.
No, Dan Stevens just left the pits.
Oh, he's back out.
After a 10-minute pit stop?
Yeah, righto. Wants to try and get some points, get to the finish. Good to see. Unfortunately, Stevens is 7 laps down on the leaders, so he won't be gaining spots anytime soon. But Gavin Barber here is continuing to just plug away here in 17th spot. Has a few positions to gain to match his grid spot, but certainly is capable. Scott Kimbrough, final position in the top 10 at the moment, with Nathan Dowd still chasing him. Kimbrough started in 8th spot, lost a couple of places on the opening lap. Dowd, meanwhile, up 1 position and looking to chase further. Coming into turn 1, you can see a little bit more aggressive on the brakes is the number 7. They've got the fountain section nicely sorted out. But again, it's a case of waiting, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of a stint here at this circuit, sometimes it is better to just sit behind, look after your tyres, potentially put yourself in a position to pit a lap earlier than the driver you're fighting with, or even a couple of laps earlier, and try and gain some track position on the undercut.
Yeah, well, we're not far off that first potential pit stop happening as well. So what we're doing 31 laps to a stint. Pick 31, that's 54, 23. Lap 23 will be the first time you can pit. Make it home if you're able to stretch it out to 31 laps. So we're going to see everyone start coming in within the next 10 laps and making that first round of pit stops. They'll all be screaming for fresh tyres as well. So we'll see if that does change the dynamic of some of these battles as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in the battle for 3rd because Walling holding on to that 3rd spot here. His laps have been, you know, in the mid 119s for the most part, but actually high 119s more like for the last few laps. Meanwhile, Justin Morton has been very consistently setting mid 119s. He's gaining a 10th or 2 on Walling almost every single lap here, and Walling has been the first one to come up on lap traffic, and he's currently trying to work his way through some of it now. So depending on how things go here for Walling, we might be seeing a closer battle for 3rd come out of this.
Well, have a look too. Peterson has dropped off the back of that group too. So the last 2 laps he's been a little bit sluggish in regards to pace and hasn't been able to match the guys in front. And Foster and Harper are closing in behind him as well. So Peterson's gone from battling for 4th. He might be now the lead car in a group battling for 6th very, very soon.
Always been something to talk about in this race so far. We're waiting to see when the drivers show their hands for the first time at this initial pit stop, what we are expecting to be a 2-stop race. Only 8 laps or so to go before the fuel tank runs out, and I think pretty much every driver out there will be struggling for grip with the tyres at the moment.
You've struggled. Katsadonis now lost that edge that he had in regards to tyres as well. Is now out to a 1.5 second gap. And that's been very, very consistent around that half second for a long time.
Yeah, it has. I mean, it wasn't even 6 laps ago that we saw these two set almost identical lap times in the 119.4s, but ever since then, it just seems like Katsadonis has been struggling to match that. He's been setting times in the 119.6, 7, and 8s. Meanwhile, Christian Challoner has kept the pace up and has been setting 119.5s and 6s. So I think just a gradual loss of time there from Tom Katsadonis. Into the pits, meanwhile, comes Nathan Dowd, who was battling with Scott Kimbrough just a few moments ago. Okay. Seems pretty early.
2:31 lap stints from here and you'll be okay.
Yeah. He'll have to really look after the tyres in these next couple of stints, though.
Let's use the spare car at that. So I'm wondering if he did put the ball. Maybe was forced to use a spare. Car looked okay when he brought it in though, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Here we go. Leader's in as well. Oh no, sorry, Morton.
Oh yeah, it's a spin. Walling is towed. Oh, I think Walling might have come together with lap traffic or hit the wall. He's lost his front right wheel. Oh no. Oh no. Josh Robertson getting into the wall ahead of him. There was nowhere for Walling to go, and unfortunately that caught up Jonathan Dance as well as Justin Morton.
Wow.
Oh, goodness. That is huge in the battle for the top 3, and that is the state of Walling's car at the moment. He's going to have to wait a couple of minutes for the tow to be completed. He can get his spare car and get back out there, but that is a major loss for the driver who was running 3rd.
Yeah, and free kick for Peterson and Abramatis, who now battling for a podium spot from nothing. That's huge for this race.
Yeah, they didn't have to do anything, did they? They just had to wait for the cards to fall. And, well, now this battle has changed. The stakes are a little bit higher. These guys are fighting for a podium. Batten comes into the pits meanwhile. He'll be getting his front wing repaired.
Screaming to get that front wing changed.
Yeah.
Just noticed Scott Kimbrough has also had an issue. Position number 9 has had something go wrong. So I think we're at the point now where the drivers are like, hey, these tyres are not fun at all. Can you get them off my car?
Yeah, oh goodness, it's been another incident of a driver running into an incident ahead. Jake Fox going for a spin in turn 7. And unfortunately, well, the number 38 of Dwayne Burns goes by, but Nick McMillan and Scott Kimbrough get into him, and they've both got damage from that now.
And Kimbrough's just trying to limp the car back to the pits, going for one more lap, so he's going to try and get this stint out of the way. So it's all absolutely broken loose at the end of the 23rd lap of racing. So 23 laps must be about where they're going, hey, these tyres are not great from here on out. In saying that, Challoner's still punching out incredibly fast lap times, but everyone else seems to be struggling with the tyre performance after that point. So this is going to be an interesting phase of the race right at the very end. when do you come in and make that last pit stop? I think everyone's going to try and go as long as they can for these first 2 stints and have as short a stint as possible at the end.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you generally want the car to be in its best state right at the end of the race, because that's when you can make the moves that you need to make to complete your fight for position. But at the same time, you want to try and preserve your tyres, and having a shorter final stint means there's less time for the tyres to get worn down, which means on paper at least you can push them harder. So let's see how the drivers tackle this second stint. That will set us up for the battle in the final 30 or so laps of this race. Number 9, Justin Morton, is still going at the moment. He did get involved in that slight smash and has lost the position to Brenton Foster as a result of that. However, we know how quick Morton is. What kind of damage has he gained from that incident, though? Visually, doesn't look like much, but there might be something going on with that number 9 that we can't necessarily see.
Sorry, I've just been quiet there because you can hear the tyres screaming through that corner because they are right on the ragged edge, right on the limit. I love listening to the tyres squeal through that corner. So I was just being a little bit quiet there, Rex.
Yeah, that's fine.
Foster, Morton, Harper continue on for another lap. I'm predicting maybe another lap and we might start to see some of these guys come in at 28, 29. I've seen Brian Barnes. Looks like he might be about to come into the pits at the end of this lap as well because his tyres are starting to hurt. He's been the leading driver out of those that came through our shootout qualifying session. Sorry, Robert Northway's the lead driver of those that was in the shootout qualifying. He's currently in the top 10.
Northway's had a really good race so far, hasn't he?
Well, we haven't talked about him, so that's usually a good sign.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously there's been quite a few drivers that have gone into the pits, but a lot of them have been due to damage. So on corrected strategy, Northway, who touch wood, hasn't been involved in any big incidents so far. I won't commentator's curse you, Robert. He's been just driving a nice quiet race. He started in 29th, remember. He's now up into the top 10. Let's see where he can go from here.
If he does get commentator's curse, it's your fault, not mine.
It is. Oh, it was almost a commentator's curse there as he locked up into turn 8. Aerial view here of the battle for 4th, and Tricia Tito in the number 42 brings it into the lane, gets the tank topped up and a fresh set of tyres. From this blimp shot, you really get a sense for how narrow the circuit is in this first sector and how little room the drivers have to maneuver. The amount of buildings around this place as well, and walls obscuring your sight line. I mean, that's why we love this circuit. Such a challenge for drivers as Northway comes into the lane there. He will fall outside the top 10, but he is one of the first drivers in that fight to really come in. Nathan Dowd, pitting 5 laps ago, will take 10th spot for now.
Bramatis and Peterson still going at it, nose to tail.
Yeah, Bramatis has been, every time we've looked at Bramatis, he has been very aggressive, hasn't he? Car behaviours. Oh, yeah. There was a late turn in there from Justin Morton trying to get back past Brenton Foster. Northway comes out of the pits in 15th spot near Gavin Barber and Nick Kuhn.
This was a lot closer than it looked on the TV angle there.
A little bit of a slide there from Peterson. And yeah, looked like he was trying to gear up for a straight line run out of the final corner, get a bit of extra pace down the front stretch. Didn't quite work out for him, but he's keeping himself in the margin for a potential move back into 4th place. Meanwhile, there's Scott Kimbrough completing his stop, and he has repaired that front wing.
Morton will be looking to repair his when he comes into the pits as well, you would think, after that incident we saw Travis Walling get involved with, and Walling has got back out on track as well. He's 1 lap down. He'll come in this lap.
Yeah, all right, let's see if they maneuver towards the
How about
pits.
none?
They do not.
Another driver that we haven't really talked about as well, we're talking about North Bay having a quiet race. Scott Newton's having a very quiet race as well. Just sitting there contently in 8th at the moment. No one around him. He's looking okay.
Yeah, I think just hitting his marks for the time being. You know, a race like this is about endurance as much as it is about outright pace. And Newton has done plenty of laps in single-seaters on the iRacing service. He knows how to push in one of these cars. But I think in a race like this, yeah, just sitting back and just watching what everyone else is doing is probably the better option in these early stages. If he was closer with another car or he was getting chased, then it might be a different story. But for now, I think you know, he's just being a quiet observer for the time being. We'll see where he goes later in the race. Abramatis, meanwhile, does he come in here at the end of lap 30? Does he take the tight turn to the pit lane? No. He's going long. All of these drivers are going long here in the first stint. Except, of course, for Justin Morton, who, as we said, might have a bit of damage to repair. Let's keep an eye on his pit stop here. So, the stops for Cody Richardson and Nathan Dowd are about the 5.5 to 6 second bracket. So that might be what we expect Justin Morton to come in at, unless he goes a bit longer. No tyres.
The car did not go up on the jacks. I'm not seeing that, am I?
Yeah. No. Yeah. The car didn't go up on the jacks there. I think that might have been a little misstep there for Morton.
Find out. I think everyone else that we've seen come in so far has taken tyres, so...
Yeah. And I mean, the pit stop would have... Yeah. Oh, hello.
There we go, we'll see now.
Yeah, Katsudonis on the way in, so... have we missed a trick, Jay? Are the leaders deciding that they can go 2 stints on a set of tyres, which I would say is nigh on impossible. Let's see then. Katsudonis on his way in, and Austin Peterson will go by him into second.
Tyres.
Okay. So this is intriguing. Very intriguing. Newton and Foster are coming in as well. Let's see if they take tyres.
Gibbs on the jacks.
Okay.
There we go. 2 seconds longer stop to take tyres.
Now, is that worth it then? Is the question. We will find out. Huh. I don't know what to make of this, Jay.
I don't either. I love this sort of stuff, though.
Yeah, I mean, like we heard before the race that, you know, the tyres will not last more than a full stint, and yet we've seen quite a few heavy hitters in this race not put fresh rubber on their cars.
Well, I think the thing that surprises me the most is it's only a 2-second penalty to take tyres. Why wouldn't you take that? Unless you're extremely good on the tyres, but for 2 seconds, is it worth the pain of limping the car around? For 2 seconds at this track?
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I'd take the 2-second penalty each and every day of the week. I'd lose that so quickly, so it'd be well worth it for me. Challenger's away, no tyres.
Oh, wow. All right.
That's Adonis.
Right there.
Look at the pit
Looks
stop
like
times between them. Absolutely
exactly
identical.
the same.
But Challoner's lost a little bit of time in the lane.
Yeah. Does come out, though, a bit further ahead, interestingly. I think Katsadonis did not have a very quick outlap.
He did get a little bit of traffic, so everyone has pretty much made their stop. And have a look at who's still together.
Indeed. Abramatis, Peterson, Harper chasing. This is going to be a fun one. Actually, look at the battle behind here. Look at this. So there's Harper. He's right in between Morton and Foster, and
Just giving up the spot to Morton there.
okay.
I think he just got that bad run, and then the lap traffic was there. He decided just to back off rather than try and fight. Excuse me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now that Challoner and Katsadonis are back up to speed, though, that gap's still at that 2 seconds it was before the stop. So everyone's pretty much come back out exactly as they were, except for Scott Newton, who's the first driver in the field to have taken tyres.
Right then. So, the face of this race has changed from what we were expecting. Will we now see the drivers that took tyres on the first stop come to the fore, have a little bit extra to play with?
Well, Newton's going to be the one to watch, isn't he? He's going to be the one that we're going to have our eyes on in the next 20-25 minutes of the race. So it may not be at the start of this stint, but by the end of this stint where the new tyres start to come into their own. So hearing that there's not a huge amount of tyre wear, but if you are hyperheating the tyres a fair amount, they will definitely have lost an edge. So, and I think you and I are both in agreement. You've got to be very, very skilled to not see a 2-second penalty for the fresh tyres not be an advantage later on in a stint.
Yeah. You have to really strike that fine balance between pace and tyre usage.
Although maybe we're just talking about a lack of skill in comparison to some of these drivers, Rex.
Hey, maybe.
More so me than you.
I think I definitely think I wouldn't be up the top in a series like this. It's I mean, drivers like Challoner and Katsadonis, Abramatis, etc. They are on another level in a series like this. So I'm interested to see how they negotiate the tyres as they get even more worn towards the end. Morton trying to get back into the top 5 here, chasing Brenton Foster. He's gone over the line a little bit there on pit exit. You're not allowed to go too far over that, otherwise you will get a slowdown penalty from the iRacing sim. But it seems he's gotten away with that for the time being. Brian Bennett coming in for his second stop in the number 71. I think he might have gotten damaged there. Actually, no. That's his first scheduled pit stop. Bennett was one of the drivers involved in the opening lap incidents. So the field is going to be just about cleansed. We have drivers like Dwayne Burns, Stephen Banks, Mike Braun, Jimbo Pfeiffer, who we are expecting a pit stop from in the next couple of laps. Those are all drivers that are a lap down. We still have 14 cars on the lead lap.
What with Brendan Foster? Tell you what, Morton getting very, very close under that rear splitter, that rear wing through the final chicane. Just can't quite maintain that momentum through the corner. It's very, very hard when you're that close through that corner to stick with that driver ahead and stick with them, maintain that gap.
Yeah, so hard. At a course like this, it's about maintaining corner speed, try and keep the momentum up. And yeah, you can be late on the brakes if you like, but If you end up losing time through the mid-corner and exit as a result, then it's not quite worth it. Car 88. Unfortunate there for Dwayne Burns.
Nick McMillan,
sorry, Nick McMillan, my apologies. I keep getting my numbers confused there. Big slide coming through turn 1 there. Nick has towed. He has been in the pits now for 2.5 minutes, so I don't know if we'll be seeing much more of him from here. Fight for the top 5 continues. Sam Harper still keeping himself in the battle. It's actually extending all the way up to 3rd place. Abramatis and Peterson up ahead, and continuing to attempt to maintain a gap here. What can these guys do to make their way forward? Oh, no! Oh dear, that was Austin Peterson who'd spun there. And Brenton Foster collected him in the fountain section. That came out of nowhere. Looks like there's also problems for Nick Kuhn and Cody Richardson. Nick Kuhn's had a big problem in the number 19. He was running fantastically.
You'll wait till you see what's actually happened here.
Oh dear.
Nick Kuhn was the car that is just ahead of Austin Peterson here. Look, he's trying to get through. Bang, puts him into the fence.
Oh, that's huge. Oh, that's massive. I don't think I've seen an incident like that in the fountain section in all my time commentating races at this circuit. That again changes the face of the battle for the top 5. Now, looks to me like Abramatis jetting ahead of these guys. Brenton Foster with heavy damage on his car, and that's so early in the stint as well. He's only 6 laps into this stint. Here's the onboard from Nick Kuhn, and just a little bit too late on the brakes there for the number 72.
That changes everything once again. Abramatis now will be thinking, wow, I've got away with one there, because he's now got a 3.5 second advantage over Morton and Harper, who had to get on the brakes quite aggressively. And Brendan Foster, he's lost out big time through no fault of his own once again.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when something happens in front of you and there's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's definitely heartbreaking if you're in the position of a driver like Foster, who is about to lose 6th place to Scott Newton. Those two very close together, and you can see just how much damage is on the front end of that number 11. Yeah, the wing is not in any good shape at all. But this is the thing. Foster, again, coming up to the 7th lap of this stint. We expect him to be out for another 30 laps or so. He's probably deciding it's not worth it coming into the pits, because he's going to lose too much time anyway.
Watch Sam Harper as well. So Sam Harper's just had a big moment here. Watch this.
Okay, getting on the power. Traction broke free there, and it's first time I've seen a little puff of smoke from the inside tyre. Oh no, Newton! Newton finds the wall. He's one of the drivers who actually took tyres in the pit stop.
Yep.
So I don't know if we'll actually be able to see his true pace there on fresh tyres.
Oh, wow, what's going on in this race? We're not even halfway through yet. Oh, bouncing it over the curb there. Newton uses it to help him turn, but that isn't the quick way through the corner. There's a few drivers that might just need to have to dial back the brain, not necessarily the pace, but the brain, and just refocus, start again. There's a lot of drivers that are starting to push the envelope a little bit too far. One of them might be Christian Challoner. He's just lost himself a 1.5 seconds.
Oh goodness, this is falling right into Christian Challoner's hands at the moment. But we have to keep an eye on Katsadonis. I guess it's falling into the hands of the top 2 in general. The number 1 through the fountain section.
The last lap still.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Katsadonis just a tiny bit slower.
Katsudonis was a second faster.
Oh, goodness. Sorry. My apologies.
Challenger a
just
20.5 and a Katsudonis a 19.6.
Yeah, of course. Wasn't looking at the numbers properly. So whose hands is it really falling into at this stage? We're trying to get a picture of how this race is going to go. We're rapidly approaching the halfway point as the number 4 of Brian Barnes comes into the lane for the second time. Looks like that was a fast repair that he just took. He has found the wall
right
somewhere.
Wheel wasn't facing the right direction there.
No. Yeah, it's like as soon as we're reaching the halfway point of this race, suddenly everything's just turned on its head. And we genuinely have no idea where anyone's going to finish at this stage. Who's going to actually be able to keep it together? Is this what I think it is? It is. Barnes just way too deep into the first turn and collects the barriers on both sides of the track. Front suspension destroyed. No wonder he had to take that fast repair.
Front tyre's not even moving, so that was why he had to come in and use that spare car. He got away with it in the end because he got it back to the pits and didn't have to tow. This gap's closed even more.
119.7 versus 119.5 for Challenger and Katsudonis. Remember that neither of these drivers took tyres in their initial pit stop. So, at the moment, starting to look like Katsudonis might be the one with the advantage here.
Newton gets it done a bit cleaner this time.
He does. Through into turn 1 on Brenton Foster, who is still carrying a bit of damage.
Fastest car on track at the moment is Justin Morton. But there are a lot more drivers doing 119s than there were earlier in the race. So Travis Walling back in 11th. Remember, he is on an alternate strategy now, unfortunately, due to that incident earlier on. It's doing 119s. Dowd, Newton, Harper, Morton, Abramatis, Katsudonis, and Challenger all doing 119s. The gap at the front now was nearly 3 seconds only 2 laps ago. It's now down to 1.3 once again.
Yeah, 119.6 for Challenger, 119.5 for Katsudonis. The battle is starting to fall in the favour of Tom at the front of the field. 1.2 seconds the gap. Will we see a move? It's certainly seemed that way, but the question on my mind is, will Katsudonis be able to catch up to Challenger before they have to come into the pits, or will he start backing off as he catches up to Challenger and try and gain time in the pit stop itself?
Well, I can tell you now that he's already lost some time, because have a look at what just happened.
Yeah, I saw that puff of smoke.
Watch this. Slide, slide, and almost hits the tyre bundle.
Yeah, in fact, he got so close that briefly showed him as taking damage for a second when he in fact did not. That's how much these drivers are pushing the limit at the moment. So, Scott Newton, Brenton Foster, and Nathan Dowd all together at the moment, and Foster, of course, walking wounded. He might have to make way for Dowd very soon here, coming down the start-finish straight. I mean, these FIA F4 cars, they don't have as sophisticated aerodynamics as their faster, higher class cousins, but at the same time, you don't want aero damage, because you damage the front wing, that's the entire airflow across the car disrupted, and you lose straight line speed as a result. That's exactly what we just saw.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you maintain the small amount of aero this car actually has, and if you damage that aero, it does hurt you big time. And the other part it does too is it not only impacts the airflow through the car, it impacts the way the tyres heat and cool. So you're starting to find now, you know, he probably hasn't noticed too much in the tyres, but another 5 laps, those tyres will be starting to hyperheat a lot quicker than what he would be normally used to. So going to have to be careful with that over the next little while. Christian Challoner's probably seen that that mistake in his mirror and gone, well, I better push now, because if I don't push now, I might not have another chance. Challoner now does the fastest lap of the race.
119.3 now. Goodness gracious. That is fastest of anyone so far.
Robert Northway's just
Challoner
been passed as well. He's made a little error, but this is close, but not quite race ending.
Oh. Yeah, that was a bit too close for comfort there for Robert Northway. The number 90 of Travis Walling actually having made his way past him in the interim. So Walling, who was running third early on and unfortunately had a crash, steadily trying to work his way back up, but again, he's one of the drivers on that alternate strategy, having had to pit earlier. Challoner going up some lap traffic now. Ahead of him he has Cody Richardson in 19th and Jonathan Dance in 18th, and Richardson already lifting off to let Challoner go down the start-finish straight. Got a couple more seconds until he comes up to the number 93. Interestingly, the fastest lap in practice was actually the number 9 of Justin Morton, 119.0. Will we see that kind of pace shown in the race?
We just saw just before that Walling got past Robert Northway after he made that little mistake. Not long after. Literally 3/4 of a lap after. Understeer on the brakes, and Northway.
Oh, and Northway spun too.
Spun as well to make sure he didn't make contact. But Travis Walling, he's back in the pits. He's already used his spare car, so this could be race ending for him.
I mean, I always get a little depressed when I see that, because, you know, Walling obviously one of the quicker drivers in this series and had potential for an excellent result tonight, but he's not going to do it this time, unfortunately. Long Beach definitely bites hard. Newton, meanwhile, he's keeping an eye out for Nathan Dowd as Challoner goes faster still. Down under 119.3 now. Don't forget that Newton had a little clobber of the wall before, and he's dealing with potential damage to the side of his car. I was expecting that Nathan Dowd would have passed him by now, but it seems that Newton is continuing to hold on to some kind of pace here. Times being set, well, Newton 0.2 slower than Dowd on that lap, so could be a change of position for 6th very shortly.
Yeah, Dowd's pace is quite good, isn't it? When you compare it, Newton, remember, he's the one that we're trying to compare to the likes of Challoner, Katsudonis, Abramatis. Was faster than Abramatis, but not faster than Challoner or Katsudonis in the front. So the fastest lap is only a 19.4, but he's been doing 19.8s and 19.9s over the last few laps. Is Nathan Dowd? Wow, that's wide. Yeah, did keep it on the track though, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, around here, keeping it on the track is... I mean, the difference is you're either on the track or you're on the track in the wall in a place like this. But yeah, he's pushing hard, isn't he, in the number 7? The way that these guys turn in for corners like the hairpin, always something to behold. You got to slow down and turn at the same time, and then try and just shove the car towards the apex, slowing all the way down to some of the slowest speeds you reach in a corner on iRacing, and try and gear up for the run down the front straight here. You see that a little bit more aggressive over the curve there was Scott Newton. What about this one? Yeah, they're taking a little bit of it, not too much. Some of the curbs here can be incredibly harsh, and those curbs that we see in the first sector, the sort of flatter, wider ones at turn 1 and coming up to turn 4. I mean, they do seem like you can really take them in a car like this, but really not the case. They're a little bit more raised than they seem, and they can very easily unsettle the car.
I think the other part of that too is they draw you in, and then the camber of the road instantly will spit you back out again. So turn 4, that curb. You want to be aggressive with it, but if you get too aggressive, you get a slow down penalty. And if you're not aggressive enough, the camber of the road will just shoot you straight into the wall, which we saw from Robert Northway earlier, where he almost ran it into the wall. He just wasn't quite aggressive enough over that curb. And then at turn 6, where we've seen a few incidents as well, that curb, you want to be aggressive with that to nearly get to the inside wall. And if you're a little bit wide of that camber in the road will also throw you out. But through this section here, there's hardly any camber in the road. So there's interesting dynamics with the track there in regards to camber through different sections of the track. You'll see here the camber really prominent runs, and the camber just goes away and forces your car towards the wall. Come up the hill here, and then it's relatively flat once again, and then through the next corner, the camber of the road will then throw you towards the wall once more.
Yeah, these very wide streets around the city of Long Beach. Obviously, public roads are built with a bit of a crown in the middle for drainage reasons and for safety reasons as well. Because if there ends up being a problem with your car, if you're just driving on the road and you end up letting go of the wheel for some reason, having the crown in the road means you'll go towards the outside of the road rather than towards the inside into oncoming traffic most of the time. But when it comes to racing, really changes the way that you have to approach some of these turns. The way the car behaves, the grip that you have, the way the weight transfers can change through a corner if you're dealing with a crown in the road.
I think straight circuits are great for that in regards to the way that it educates drivers in how to understand different cambers and things like that. I think racing straight tracks is underrated in regards to understanding tracks when you get away from the walls. I don't think the walls is the important bit. I think the camber in the road is way more important. I just noticed Jonathan Dance has had a bit of a moment.
Oh, he has.
Whereabouts is that turn 1?
It's somewhere in the vicinity of turn 1, but definitely not the racetrack.
Turn 8. The end of the back straight.
Jeez. Right.
Just locked it up and gone straight ahead. There he is.
Yeah. Wow. I've never paid much mind to that runoff area, but that's what happens when you go a bit too deep.
Oh, I did want a flick spin on him.
Oh, no. Okay. A little bit too aggressive in reverse gear. That's some damage to the rear wing now.
While we were watching that too, Nathan Dowd actually managed to get the overtake done.
He did indeed. He is ahead of Scott Newton. And this is how he did it. At the very same location where we just saw that unfortunate botched flick spin. Seems like a pretty textbook move there. Had more straight line speed, and well, there's the recovering car in the background.
Up at the front's gone back out to 2 seconds, as we said before, but it's gone very, very static since it stretched out. So after that mistake from Katsadonis, gap at the front hasn't moved much at all. They're both lapping almost identical times. Challoner just puts in a 19.3. Katsadonis responds with a 19.3. So they're separated by a couple of hundredths of a second lap on lap.
Again, they are just neck and neck, aren't they? And it only takes one mistake from Challoner for Katsadonis to be brought right into this battle again. I mean, I saw right off the initial race start how close they were. There was barely anything between them, and that's continued over the entire course of this race. Of course, no cautions in the Major Series on road courses, so it's been an out-and-out pace fight the whole way through. They haven't had safety cars to, work around, alter their strategy, bring them back together. Meanwhile, drivers like Dan Stevens cannot take advantage of stuff like that. And is it just me, or does he have a little bit of right hand down still?
Oh, definitely got right hand down. Remember, he'd already used his spare car and had to come in and get damage fixed again. So
yeah,
he's just limping at home to try and get as many spots as possible. The positive in his favour is that the likes of Travis Walling have had misdemeanors and have had to retire from the race, so he'll gain a spot there as Challoner punches out fastest lap. Have a look at this time when it pops up.
Oh, all right.
But you know what the other part to that is? Katsudonis responded with his personal fastest lap of the race as well. So not only are they're going quick, they're going extremely quick at the front.
Yeah, they got a couple of tenths on everyone else. Yeah, I mean, only a tenth separating them that time. It's a battle of the hot laps between Challoner and Katsudonis. Abramatis behind could do no better than a 1 minute 20.4 that time, which is interesting to see. Oh dear. That is Gav Barber going for a little bit of a spin at the end of the lap. Managed to get back going in a safe manner, but I think he might have spun up the rears a bit too much coming out of the hairpin. That's something that you have to worry about in most cars here, unless something completely different has happened. No, actually, yeah, a bit too aggressive on the throttle and then hits the nose on the concrete as well. Stays off the racing line in the process, but something you've always got to think about at Long Beach. Often doesn't matter what car you're in. You get on the power too aggressively, those rears are going to spin up and you'll just go around.
Actually, the first time we've seen this race, though, isn't it? In these cars, we do see it a lot in other cars, but we haven't seen it much at all in this one. You were talking about Tom Abramatis and his pace. I'm feeling like there's some damage on his car. I can't see it, but yeah, his pace just isn't there. And that lap by Justin Morton took another 0.7 of a second out of him. You can see him now closing in for this potential third place.
Yeah, it's a lot of potential here for a move for third. Yeah, you're right. I can't see any indication of damage on Abramatis' car, but something's going on in that number 20. Maybe he's pushed the tyres too hard. Maybe they've finally given up the ghost coming towards the end of this second straight stint on these tyres for a lot of the drivers in this field.
You'll remember, he's one of the drivers that didn't take tyres in that first stop. They're now coming up to 60-odd laps, 55-odd laps without a change of tyres. Considering how much load they are being put through at this track, we'll reach a point where you start to scream for mercy.
Just being through Tom Abramatis' last few laps, he set his personal best on lap 50, 119.4, and I'm not seeing any indication that he had a crash or hit the wall or anything like that. So I think maybe he okay, yeah, there we go, back to 119.4s. Maybe he was just maybe he was just having a couple of issues there on those couple of laps, keeping the pace up. I mean, these drivers are having to deal with traffic. Yeah, I was about to say. Next bit of traffic, of course, will be Dan Stevens. And, I mean, these cars have very simple aerodynamics, but aerodynamic interference from cars ahead is still something you have to think about. Stevens lets them go nice and easy. Morton now right on the back of Abramatis. That might have been what Tom was dealing with, just a little bit of aero push from trying to negotiate cars ahead.
Well, every time we did go to him, we did see him dealing with a lap car at the hairpin. Now, it's the worst place at this track to get a lap car. As you just see in the background there, a lap car going into the wall. I believe that's Jake Fox, who's just gone straight ahead.
Yes.
On there. So hopefully he can get the car away. Okay, it looks like he's going to get unscathed out of that one.
Yep, nicely done. Back into the race. Still down in 24th position. Shane Vickery is in the lane for the 4th time in this race. Nathan Dowd brings the number 7 in as well. Okay, here we go. This is the first driver in the top 10 to take his second stop with 31 laps remaining in the race.
You remember Dowd was the first to pit in the first phase as well. He had to come in and use his spare car. He's going no tyres at this stop, so he did take tyres at the first one. Brendan Foster in as well. Remember, he's got damage that he's been waiting to get fixed. Instantly, you can see the car get repaired, so he's used his spare car back out and away. He'll be hoping that he doesn't scratch this one.
Yeah, certainly. Depends on where he comes out. Abramatis versus Morton, meanwhile. I feel like one of them has to... Yeah, this is absolutely great fight. But one of them has to do something in this pit cycle. They have to do something different if they want to try and do anything.
I think Morton has to pit first to try and jump. I think that's the only way he's going to get ahead. I thought I was about to see him peel off to the side there, but decided to keep going. 30 laps to go, so we know we're now in the window where they can pit and make it home. Should be A-OK. They all did 32 to 33 laps in that first stint, so I think any time from now we'll see Morton in. The second he feels like he's really getting held up, I think is when he has to come. Judging by his last couple of lap times, I don't think he's quite at the being held up stage, but he's very, very close.
Yeah, you can see that he's maintaining pace nicely, and I mean, Abramatis is still gaining on him in certain sections of the track, but yeah, I think sooner rather than later is when Morton will have to come in and try and get some clear air. Not so much a tyre undercut, but more of a clean air undercut, I suppose you could say. If you don't have anyone in front of you, you can focus a bit more on your braking markers and your turn-in points, etc., and gain a little bit of time on your rival that way. I am bemused and a tiny bit frustrated that the information we were fed about tyre strategy has turned out to be largely incorrect so far. Honestly, we were expecting that drivers would be dealing a lot with overheated tyres and having to come into the lane to get fresh rubber every stop. But for the most part, it's looking like a few drivers are looking to go the entire race on one set.
I think most will take tyres at the next one just to make sure that they're safe. I think Challoner will, because he's got that 2-second buffer, he can afford 2 seconds. Will Katsudonis then decide, well, hey, I better not take tyres and try and gain that 2 seconds. Maybe I'll get some track position. The positive that is going in their favour to keep the tyres, though, is that the track has cooled a little. Hasn't cooled a huge amount, but it has cooled about 2 or 3 degrees. So, yeah, that may be something that the drivers do consider, but I think if you've already done 60 laps on a set, might as well take tyres and make sure that they're safe for the end of the race. You wouldn't want to put it in the wall trying to limp home on 85-lap old tyres right on the last lap.
No, that wouldn't be ideal. Looks to me like Abramatis gained a tiny little bit on Morton here, but they are pushing hard coming into the hairpin. Do either of them come into the lane this time? No, they don't. They're trying
Morton's getting held up now.
Yeah. I get the feeling he's going to want to come in at the end of this lap here. Sam Harper stays out of the pits as well. Don't forget, of course, that the top 6 are anywhere from 25 to 27 laps in to this second stint. So they haven't quite run the tank out just yet. They might want to wait a couple more laps and make it a short stint to the end. Not fill up the car as much, spend a bit less time stationary. Might only be a couple of tenths, but it could be worth it.
So we've got 26 of our 33 starters running in this race. Okay, I'll take that back. We've got 25 still running because Shane Vickery is in the pits, unfortunately, with damage. Just seeing Robert Northway is in. Christian Challoner also is in. Here we go.
Here we go. And just as he does that, Tom Katsudonis sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:19.144 from car 506. Challoner will come to his box at the end of the pit lane. Will he take tyres? Is the car going up on the jacks? It is not.
Ow.
All right, interesting. Now, does Katsadonis respond by taking tyres and pushing super hard towards the end?
I think he has to. You can't just do the same. If you just keep doing the same, you're going to get the same result. So I think he's got to do something. Considering the gap he's got behind, he's got nothing to lose and everything to gain to try it.
Yeah. At least give it a try. Throw it out there, see if it works. Well, keep our eye here on car 506 as he is dealing with a little bit of traffic here at the end of this lap. You would have seen the Challoner came in ahead. Oh no. Oh, slow car there. That would have been a 10th maybe for Katsadonis. And a 10th more as he's behind the number 19 of Nick Kuhn, and into the pits he comes. Very difficult pit entry here. Slow it right down. Okay. So, gap between Katsadonis and Challoner at the moment, 30 seconds.
Needs to absolutely nail this pit stop, doesn't he? Doesn't want to take a smidgen extra fuel. He needs to take the absolute exact amount of fuel that his car needs and no more.
Yeah, and you saw him going in there. He's not taking tyres.
Okay. Well,
but you could see, yeah, very good stop there from Katsadonis, 5.8 seconds, but it was a way better stop for Challoner, 5.1 seconds. And actually, Katsadonis 0.2 slower on the way out of the lane, almost side by side. That is the gap then. Challoner ahead of Katsadonis here by, that's 2.8 seconds is the gap between them at the moment. So it's all going to come down to this final stint and whether or not Katsadonis is comfortable pushing a little bit harder. You could see how much he was trying to shorten his time through the lane though, right? He was sticking all the way to the inside, going through the pit boxes.
We saw that car that was going slow before. That was Gav Barber. He had a moment through the final complex of corners, but unfortunately, as he's come out of the final corner, he's had a little spin, and that's caught out Brian Bennett. So she's done a good job to make sure he hasn't hit anyone there on the recovery. Got some sort of suspension damage at this point. Here comes, that's the 11 of Foster. You'll see here comes Katsadonis. See that car's still struggling. He's trying to get it into the pits. Has a little spin. Wow. Bang.
Yeah, that is heavy.
Suspension damage.
Yeah, very heavy suspension damage there for Barber. You see the tires were dragging, really.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah, it's like he damaged the internal springs as well as the struts as well. Either way, Tom Abramatis now into the lead of the race. He hasn't taken his second pit stop yet. We still have him and Scott Newton, the last drivers in the top 10, to take their second and presumed final pit stop. When does he decide to do it? He's got some traffic. That is the number 42 of Chris Yatito, who's already taken another stop here.
Remember, Abramatis is battling with Justin Moore. Yeah, Justin Morton, Sam Harper in that sort of area. Here he comes. Scott Newton. It put me out there for a second there. I'm like, hang on, has Scott Newton jumped those guys in the pit stops? But he hasn't made his pit stop yet. We'll go one more. Remember, he's on fresh tyres, so he might as well push on for as many as he can.
Indeed. Well, Abramatis will fall to fourth and get the feeling he's going to come out ahead of Justin Morton at this stage. Still hasn't quite come into the lane. Actually, I will correct myself. It looks like Morton potentially will go by. We will see. 5.8 second stop for Abramatis. He didn't take tyres. There's Morton emerging. And it actually looks like, yeah, Abramatis will come out ahead, but not by much. Look at the speed difference between these cars. It's going to be side by side between the two of them coming into the fountain section. And wow, Justin Morton takes 4th spot from Tom Abramatis.
Interesting, neither of them took tyres. Scott Newton, was that a moment? Scott Newton just spun.
Oh, no.
At turn 5.
Okay.
Wow.
Maybe those tyres are past their best, but then that remark doesn't make much sense because Newton, remember, took tyres on his first stop. Maybe he's just pushed them a little too hard. We'll see what happened to him here.
He's just taking a bit too much curb on that inside.
Maybe a bit too much throttle as well on the way out.
Something I never have had issues with, too much throttle. Not enough brake I used to have issues with, but never too much throttle.
Well, I mean, you spent most of your time racing the Australian touring cars, didn't you, Jay? So
I never had enough brakes.
No, but it definitely taught you throttle control, didn't it?
Definitely did. The easiest way to control the throttle was to not use it.
Exactly. Just coast your way around the circuit.
Coast and brake.
Yeah.
Newton back away. Has he taken tyres this time? No, he's sticking with those tyres that he's had. Will he rejoin behind Nathan Dowd? Just behind him, ahead of Brendan Foster. So Newton sticks in 7th position. Robert Northway still the biggest mover in regards to positions. The only driver in the top 10 who came through our shootout qualifying session.
Yeah, I'm impressed that that Northway has still managed to find his way into the top 10 even after everything that has gone on. Remember, he did have a couple of issues earlier on, which we thought might have put him out of contention for a top 10, but he's still plugging away there 5 laps into his stint on the same strategy as the top 2. Katsadonis ran 5/10 faster than Challoner on that lap, so I think the battle for the lead might start to come into the favour of the 5:06 again pretty soon. There's Challoner, 119.7 on his last lap, 119.2 from Tom Katsadonis.
A big difference, isn't it? It's half a second between them. Morton now, he's going to have to defend this position from Abramatis all the way to the finish. Remember, these guys are on 64 lap old tyres.
Oh, you saw that big slide there for Morton around the roundabout at the fountain. He's starting to struggle with that rear end. I mean, he knows that he's managed. Yeah, let's keep an eye on it. He knows that he's got what it takes here to finish in 3rd.
Notice it here. See how aggressive he is trying to straighten the car back out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at those micro corrections that he's making on the exit of the corner. Is that going to be enough, though? How's his throttle application? Is he looking after those rears? Because a track like Long Beach, traction is so important. Oh, Katsadonis, 119.0. Have a look at that. P2 chasing Christian Challoner. The gap is now under 2 seconds. This is going to be a fun finish to the race. Instantly to the inside goes Justin Morton. Part of me thought he looked a bit slow there for a second, but I think he was just making some adjustments to the steering in the middle of the corner. Either way, this is going to be a defensive drive for the ages if he can hold back Tom Abramatis.
Abramatis has been probably a little bit inconsistent out of the two, hasn't he? He hasn't been as consistent throughout this race. So we'll see. Oh, nice little slide to keep himself through the corner there from Abramatis. Very, very well. This will be interesting to see who can make the least mistakes. Whoever makes the least mistakes in this battle gets the podium spot. The issue is they've both made mistakes and they've both been around other cars that have made big mistakes. So they need a little bit of luck on their side as well as making very, very few mistakes.
Yeah, keeping their eyes on stalks, listening to their in-sim spotter as well, warning them if cars stopped, and being aware that they might have to take avoiding action very soon. Challoner responding nicely to Katsadonis on that lap, but still running incredibly close times. Challoner was only 7 thousandths of a second faster. Mike Braun comes into the pits for the third time. Of course, the first time he came in was to repair damage. So we're now seeing the final pit stops from those drivers that were involved in incidents in the early laps. Jonathan Dance comes in as well. I think we can expect Jimbo Pfeiffer to come in for a final stop at some point, maybe in the last 10 or so laps. Dan Stevens, probably with about 5 laps to go. So that's your situation for drivers that haven't had the best race so far. We still expect another pit stop from Austin Peterson in 11th and Dwayne Burns in 13th. But for the time being, it is Challoner versus Katsadonis in a battle of the hot laps at the front of the field. And Challoner runs another 3/300ths of a second faster than Katsadonis. They are once again super matched.
Interesting looking at their sector times. I thought I'd bring it up.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
They're very, very different in where they're getting their speed. So
They are.
the previous lap, Challoner was getting all of his speed through the final sector and losing it in the middle sector. That time it was the first sector that Katsadonis was faster, but it's still that last sector where Challoner's got the most pace.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that might be the run through the hairpin. Entry, mid-corner, exit. Got to get that absolutely right, and that can carry your momentum all the way to the line. So I reckon we should keep that graphic in the back pocket and check in on it a couple more times in the last 20 laps of this race. 19 to go specifically. So Katsadonis has the fastest lap of the race as a whole, 1:19.036. Remains to be seen if the top two will be able to approach that again with how hard they've pushed the tyres so far. And that battle for third is still in contention. Morton versus Abramatis could be going off soon. Have a look at that. Wow, there's only 800ths between them. And yeah, it looks like this time
in the first sector for Katsadonis, and the rest is back to Challoner.
Yeah. This is so intriguing, seeing where individual drivers are actually making up their pace. So into the pits, meanwhile, Austin Peterson, that's going to be his final stop of the race there. Again, another one of those drivers that we expected a great result from, just didn't end up going his way. An incident in this very sector of the circuit. Scott Newton back in the lane.
Who's already made his second stop? So
yeah.
What is going on for Newton here?
Does he have a mechanical black flag? No, he doesn't. Did he not? Whoa, okay.
I mean, just used his spare car and away he went.
Ah, okay.
Maybe he's just clipped the wall and decided, hey, I'm just going to get this damage fixed rather than try and limp it home.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, he's come back out in 9th. Last car on the lead lap. We've had so many cars put a lap or more down. Robert Northway has just fallen outside the lead lap. Challoner Abramatis making their way past him. Morton versus Abramatis. Challoner and Katsadonis, yes. Morton and Abramatis, yes. This is it's always a bit difficult when, I mean, this is a bit of a unique situation in terms of names, isn't it? We have two Toms, both with Greek last names, and it can sometimes get a bit confusing. You end up saying the wrong driver from time to time. Morton goes a little bit understeery through the fountain, and here comes Abramatis to try and take advantage of that.
Closest he's been, I reckon. This is the closest he has been to try and steal a spot. Abramatis actually did his personal fastest lap of the race. And I can just see out of the corner of my eye, that camera there, Morton's struggling. That wheel is being yanked a lot harder than it was 10 minutes ago.
Let's keep an eye on him here on the Zoom feed as he shifts down for Firestone Corner, the right-hander. Yeah, you see how hard he is working it. A cloud falls over the circuit. That'll bring the temperature down slightly. It's down to 41 degrees. It sat at that for a while, but this might give a bit of reprieve to drivers who have been overworking their tyres a little.
One thing you can tell about how he's working the wheel now, actually see that he's gripping the wheel harder. So at the start of the day when we were watching, he was really, really loose on the wheel, felt really natural. He's now holding on to the wheel. He's gripping it tight. Usually means that the car's starting to fight against him. So we'll watch that over the next 16 laps. But that's the easiest way to tell how a car is behaving, is how tight someone is gripping the wheel. I've worked that out watching a lot of Zoom feeds of drivers over the last few years. This is where he's had real trouble. That was the smoothest he's been through for about 15 minutes.
He is working hard, and it's interesting. You mentioned how tightly drivers grip the wheel. There was actually a post I saw on the Sim Racing subreddit the other week talking about how often drivers grip the wheel too hard in any case. Yep. And if you have a looser grip on the wheel, as Justin Morton had earlier on, you actually feel what the car is doing a little better. So, yeah, interesting little note there. Apparently Max Verstappen, when he's racing his dominant Red Bull Formula 1 car at the moment, he is barely gripping the wheel at all. He is driving with his fingertips, and he's just able to feel every little detail of what the car's telling him through the steering rack.
Sort of reminds me of one thing I learnt when I used to play golf as a junior was, imagine the grip is a tube of toothpaste. You don't want to squeeze the toothpaste out, and it's the same with the steering wheel. If you hold it looser, you've got more control and you can do more things with it. So it's very, very interesting how aggressive he has started to hold the wheel, and it really does bring about that white knuckle look, because you can actually see how much his let's see if I can up here. You can see how much his hands are gripping the wheel. Look at, you can see on his left hand that the third and fourth finger, when they're not holding the shifter or going for the shifter, he's being really aggressive on it.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Especially when he's trying to make corrections. Of course, he's going through the hairpin there. I figured how much Lockie was winding on. Yeah, it's probably the hairpin. I think Long Beach is one of the few circuits where you can very easily tell that a driver's driving at Long Beach, even if you don't actually have imagery of the circuit in front of you. You can tell by the steering inputs.
The Long Beach, Monaco, what other circuits?
Oh, maybe Spa?
Spa probably, with the hairpin, and then
Monza definitely.
Yep.
Just the drivers just straight most of the lap. Followed by some very heavy inputs through the chicanes.
I was going to say, you could probably tell in the real world at Bathurst because of the angle at which a driver's head was facing, whether it was looking slightly up or slightly down.
Yep. Got to assume verticality as well.
Oh, there we go.
Fastest lap from Katsadonis. That's the first time we've seen a 1:18 all event.
Oh, what a lap.
Wow, he is rapidly chasing down Challoner, isn't he? The gap is now down to 1.6 seconds, but what I've noticed is when we've seen a new fastest lap punched in by either of these two, suddenly the pace drops off for a couple more laps. So we'll probably have to wait and see if Katsadonis can hold on to that pace. Morton versus Abramatis, meanwhile.
So I was about to say, interesting, the top three in the field, Challoner, Katsadonis and Morton, all did their personal fastest laps of the race that previous lap.
Oh, they
So
did
the
too.
track is definitely coming to them. So an 18.9 for Katsudonis, a 19.03 for Challoner, and 19.187 for Justin Morton. Tom Abramatis, a 19.2 for his lap just there. Brendan Foster also did his personal fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, interesting.
So
Very
Brian Barnes back in
interesting.
19th.
Nice. Well, it's all coming together at the end of the race here. The track would be fully rubbered in. It's probably in its optimal state at the moment for actual straight up grip. Oh yeah, Katsudonis. Again, those two last names. Faster once more. 18.973. That's the first time in a while I've seen successive fastest laps put in. He's starting to pile on the pressure here, isn't he? And I noticed that Challoner, he actually had to make a steering correction out of the final hairpin at the end of the last lap. So I get the feeling he's starting to fall off the wagon a little bit. What about these two then? The battle for third. Morton is still very much eyes forward. He's got a clear track ahead of him. Doesn't have to worry about traffic for a little while. I tell you what, that blue and red machine dancing around in his mirrors might offer a little bit of distraction at the moment. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can definitely see he's gripping it hard now. The pressure is building. Abramatis almost hitting the inside wall at that corner there.
Another 10th in the favour of Katsudonis. So it's 1.4 seconds with 11 laps to go. He needs a 10th and a half to get there with a lap to go. Based on his current pace and his current driving, I would say he might be a chance of getting right on the tail of Christian Challoner with a lap or two to go. The other thing that he's got in his favour is traffic is going to impact Challoner more than it will Katsudonis.
Yeah, it will. Challoner will be the first to get to the traffic, and depending on where you are on the circuit, could offer up a lot of potential time to Katsudonis. So Morton here, the next bit of traffic he'll come up to is Brian Bennett down in 24th place, and he's got, God, that's about 7 seconds, possibly more. So won't have to worry about it for a while. But with 10 laps to go, might come up on the traffic right at the end. I'm always amazed looking at the aerial shots of the circuit, the difference in width. Look at how much the track narrows up here. The width is effectively cut in half in the space of one corner.
Such a tough, challenging track, and this section here was not used in the original layout. They of the next street over was the old pit straight. You just saw at the top of your screen, Katsudonis, another fastest lap of the race.
Oh wow, he's
18.8.
He's building, isn't he? He's really building. Feel like he's just been backing off for the majority of this race, not showing his true pace right until the end. Might catch out Challoner here. Let's look at the sectors. They did the exact same sector one time.
And the final sector's not that different, but that's sector 2 again, Katsudonis. That's this segment right here up to halfway down this back straight is where Katsudonis is faster. He's better through that segment after the fountain through to here, through the staircase section. He's doing a very, very nice job.
I reckon it's traction corner exits where Katsudonis is really showing his hand. Challoner through the mid-speed sort of twisty sections of the track is matching him, but every time they come to exiting a right angle turn, I think that's where Katsudonis is starting to get it done. Faster again. Both of them doing their PBs. Katsudonis to a 1:18.7.
And you can see visually now how much that gap has closed down. It's within a second now for the first time since before the first round of pit stops. We saw it close down to around about 1.5 seconds in the...
Challoner's got traffic! Oh, no! Jake Fox! Spinning ahead! And Katsadonis has gotten into him! He can't get going, he's got damage! Just as we were starting to see the lead close up, it's ruined!
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
That's unfortunate. Jake Fox was trying to stay wide and get out of the way. You see him here, he's going, okay, I've got traffic, I better get out of the way. And he just gets a big slide and hits the wall, and then, Abramatus nowhere to go. Oh,
He'd already committed to the corner.
Yep. Jake Fox will be heartbroken by that too. We know how much of a clean driver Jake is. We know that there was no malice involved in that. That's just a heartbreaking moment. And Tom Katsadonis, he'll be absolutely livid with that. Christian Challoner will be thanking every single star out there because the lucky ones have just struck him then. It could have quite easily have been him instead of Katsadonis.
I'm feeling pretty deflated right now, honestly.
Just one of those unfortunate incidents, isn't it?
Yeah, we were building up to such an incredible battle for the lead of this race in the final 10 laps. And now all of a sudden, all of the wind has been taken out of my sails.
Yep, and Challoner now can just limp the car home because we know he was struggling in regards to pace and tyre life. Oh, Challoner will be thinking, wow, how lucky did I get there? Because he would have seen that happening in front of him and gone, oh no, I'm gone. He just sent a message in the InSim chat saying that sucked because he knows how much that battle was going to be amazing. And Challoner lives for those sort of battles too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really enjoys it. You know, Challoner does work for iRacing themselves. He builds the default setups for the cars. Look at how much he missed Jake Fox there. In fact, there was a little bit of contact. He just got away with it.
I'm wondering whether there's actually any damage to the car. His pace has dropped off a little, around about half a second or so. Have a look at this again from the other side.
So Fox goes for the spin ahead and so close.
That could have so easily been Challoner.
Both of our leaders.
Yeah, both of them or the other way around. That was just unlucky for Katsadonis and lucky for Challoner. As you said, he thrives for these battles. He would prefer to lose. He'd prefer to finish second and have an intense, amazing battle that he's worked really hard for than to win a very, very easy race.
Yeah, of course. He's always been that kind of driver, and he lives for the community as well. I was going to finish the point I was making before he started working for iRacing and making the default setups for every car. He actually ran his own little setup shop that wasn't even really a setup shop. It was just a free selection of setups he was making, and I even used that for a while, and it really helped me out. So Challoner is definitely a giving person, and he would have been happy to not run away with this race and just have a good fight. He lives for the fight.
Katsadonis hopefully will be able to get back out on track and get himself some points from this race. Banks and Braun here, 16th and 17th. They're in a little bit of an intense battle themselves. They have Christian Challoner coming on through as well.
Yeah, Challoner trying to pick his way through these guys, and they've given him a good amount of space. No, he's got a 25-second lead. Nathan Dowd coming in for a third time.
Flag.
Oh dear.
So I'm trying to work out. I did see he was slow on that lap. He lost a first part of the lap, but I couldn't see where he had got that from. Just trying to work it out. See if we can work out where he's picked up that damage from. But he doesn't have a spare car left, so he could find himself with day done from a top 10 position.
Exit turn 5, same spot that Jake Fox had his slide. Just got into the tyre bundles. It was a side-on impact. This be it. Just a little bit wide on exit, slides out, and yeah, didn't look like much of a hit, but that was enough to give him a mechanical black flag.
Well, the rear suspension would have taken a pretty heavy impact from that, so he would have lost drive as well. He'll be parked in the lane for a little while. Interesting, out of our 33 starters, 8 of our runners have not used their spare cars. Unfortunately, Katsadonis did not have his spare car ready to be selected. He's now stuck in the pits doing normal repairs.
Yeah. Well, he's been in the pits now for 5 minutes and 40 seconds, and he'll remain there for a while longer. In other news, the battle for what is now second has unfortunately fizzled out a bit.
Abramatis has pushed the tyres
fallen off the back. Yeah.
Morton's still going though. He's still working those tyres. And probably the arms are nowhere near as tense as they were 15 minutes ago. He looks a little bit more relaxed in the body language.
Yeah. Still keeping the focus on, but he has a little bit less pressure to deal with. He can focus a bit more on his own car as things stand. So 4 laps to go for our leader, and the same now for Justin Morton as well. Challoner still pushing a little bit, isn't he? That looked like a good spin up of the rear tyres on the exit of turns 6 and 7. 119.0. He's
still going for it.
Yeah, he's still going for it. I think he's trying to go for the fastest lap here, I think, because he knows that Katsadonis was able to do a 118.7 on the lap before his unfortunate crash with Jake Fox.
Well, he hasn't done a 118 yet, so
No,
he'll be looking
he
to
hasn't.
try and get into that 118s. I'm sure that's
Exactly.
that's his challenge that he's going to give himself for the rest of the race. I'm very sure of it. Got 3 laps to do it.
Yeah, all right. Clear track ahead. No traffic. Let's see what he can do. Coming into turn 1 here. Absolutely nails the apex of the first couple of turns. Slow it right down for the fountain, carrying a lovely amount of speed through that section. How aggressive is he over this curb? Not very. That's the fastest line through this corner in these cars. Try and take as much of the inside curb at turn 5 as you can, and certainly look nice and stable on the exit. This is the turn where he had the slide last time. The way the track widens up through this section, you can actually keep the steering wheel quite straight on the way out of there and still maintain a fast line through it. 21.76, a little bit down on his fastest first sector. 33.3 in sector 2 though. That looks reasonably quick. Sector 3 is where Challoner's traditionally been quicker.
He's able to get so close to that inside wall through the hairpin there, isn't he? He looks like he's a lot more confident through there than anyone else.
Yeah, I think as he sets a 119.0, hello, he's getting closer to it with 2 to go now. Penultimate lap begins. I think Long Beach is one of those circuits we check out.
This is Brendan Foster from 5th.
Oh no.
Don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall.
Don't hit the
Very
wall.
Very good. Well done.
Cool. 3-point turn. Away
I've
you
just
go.
also seen that Nathan Dowd has retired his car. He's not able to get that damage fixed. So there's 2 drivers within the top that were in the top 10 with 10 laps to go that are out of the race.
Such a shame. I mean, I think it comes with the territory. Long Beach, being a street circuit, you're always going to have a few people falling out of it in the final stages, especially the ones that push really hard to get into the top 10. But to try and relate that to the point you made about Challoner being able to get closer to the wall, I think Long Beach is the circuit on iRacing, along with Belle Isle, the other true street circuit on this platform. The real difference maker between drivers is the sense of where the car is, being able to place the car as the final lap begins for our leader. If you're able to just sense that you're a few centimeters closer to the inside wall at a certain corner, if you're able to hit that mark lap after lap, then that's the real difference maker in terms of pace, isn't it?
Exactly right. It's those fine millimeters that make all the difference, and the confidence to be able to do that as well is so huge. And we know how good Christian Challoner is. He's a multi-time champion of this series, and he has been for a reason. And today he's just proven why he's one of the best that there have ever been in the sim racing world. Of course, used to race in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. So, I mean, we know the skill of this guy.
Yeah, for sure. He does a lot of racing in a lot of different cars. He's also active in occasionally in the Grand Prix Legends series, that the broadcast splitter, which is done by our friends over at Global Sim Racing Channel. And Challoner also a bit of a commentator himself, isn't he? I've actually worked with him in the commentary booth a couple of times, but this time I am watching him as he comes across the line to win the Majors Grand Prix of Long Beach in the Pacific region. It goes to Challoner. He gets maximum points from this round. Heartbreak for his main rival, but he will be there to take advantage.
And he got into the 18s on the last.
I did 18-9, not quite close to what Katsadonis was able to do, but still manages to get it done. There's Justin Morton celebrating second place, really well driven from the number 9, from 6th to the runner-up position. Excellent stuff. And Tom Abramatis gets on the podium from starting 3rd, so a good race for him all up. Challoner already doing his victory donuts in the well, I guess half on the track, half in the runoff area for turn 1. Doesn't have to worry about too much of a problem there. He doesn't have to use those rear tyres anymore. He can just let them smoke out.
There's a battle to the line there. Gavin Barber just got past Cody Richardson at the hairpin on the final lap to get a position, so he finishes in 13th. Richardson in 14th position on the last lap.
Nicely done. Have a look at that. Nice little photo opportunity for a few of our drivers. Number 72, Austin Peterson, pulls up as well. This is the team photo here. And this is the move that got Gavin Barber the place.
Gavin Barber was ahead. We actually got a little hit. And then Richardson's given the spot back.
Oh, yeah. Good sportsmanship there. Nice redress at the very end. Richardson definitely gave it a red-hot go. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But ultimately, Barber does finish ahead. And look at that. The mega cars all together. Lovely stuff from that team. Challoner, of course, on top by almost 30 seconds at the very end. Morton and Abramatis separated by around about 3 seconds. Sam Harper finishes in 4th. Foster, last car on the lead lap, interestingly. Only the top 5 on the lead lap of the race. Everyone else a lap down or more. Really amazing stuff from our top 5. Kimbrough, Newton, Northway, Peterson and Batten are our top 10. And big shout out to Robert Northway to get into 8th place from starting 29th.
Yeah, really good effort from him there to get home as high as he did. But Burns, Yahito, then Barber and Richardson, we just saw there. They're the last two laps down. Stephen Banks, Mike Braun, Brian Barnes, Jonathan Dance, Nick Coon. Last of our drivers to get home without too many issues. Nathan Dowd, the first of our retirements. A few more drivers that did bring it home just behind him, though. Tom Katsadonis, unfortunately, DNF for him as well. 8 laps from the end. Shane Vickery, Ryan Bennett, and Dan Stevens did finish the race. The rest of our drivers are DNFs. Jake Fox, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Travis Worley, Nick McMillan, Josh Robertson, Dino Vella. The rest of the field is Ray Partridge, Staropoli, and then Robbie Bradbury, the first driver to unfortunately retire from the race.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Robbie. Still managed to make it a few laps in at least, which is more than can be said about a lot of sim racers at the Long Beach Street Circuit. It was a really tough one, wasn't it? And, well, we can bring to an end racing coverage as we have Christian Challoner joining us in the commentary box now. Christian, congratulations on the victory. I saw that you were expressing your sympathies there to Tom Katsadonis after that top two battle ended in the worst possible way.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. It had kind of gone back and forth between the two of us the whole race. I was really confident actually after the last pit stop. I come out ahead. I thought I kind of had the job done, but Tom was really quick. There was certain parts of the race where it kind of flipped back and forth between us as to who was the quickest, and it looked like for him right at the end he was just going to be super fast. I mean, I was able to run an 18.9 on my last lap, but it really wasn't comfortable. It was faster than I, felt safe going. So he was out there, I think, doing 18.8s and 18.7s behind me, and he was in striking distance right at the point when the incident happened. So yeah, it was really unfortunate because it's probably one of the most fun races I've had in the series in a while because it was just close the whole way. I mean, I know we weren't kind of side by side or anything, but it was a really good tactical battle and certainly kind of a back and forth on lap time. So yeah, I hope he does more races because that was a ton of fun, and just really unfortunate that he got taken out there. I mean, I don't want to say taken out. That's really not what happened. It was just, it's a street circuit. Mistakes happen. It happened throughout the field. It was just really unfortunate that the three of us got together there at that corner, and it was, it's nobody's fault. Just these things happen. I just got extremely lucky because I got hit really hard in the left rear, and it could have gone either way. I could have been the one that got spun around. He could have kept going, or we both could have been in it, or neither of us could have been in it. So, yeah, it just sucks that we didn't get to have the battle at the end because I think it would have been really good for the broadcast.
Yeah, I think just timing more than anything was the main element of that incident. Just coming together at that point of the track, at that point of the race. Speaking of the race, got a strategy question for you. We were fed information that the tires would not be able to last a full tank if you pushed them hard. So, what kind of approach were you taking to the tires to make them last as long as they did? You didn't take tires the whole race.
Yeah, so I didn't do that because I felt like if you kind of were nice to them, I mean, they weren't really wearing and they weren't really getting very hot as long as you weren't sliding them. And for me, the first couple of laps on a new set was really brutal, and I didn't want to be exposed in those scenarios by taking a set. So that's why I just kept them on. I felt like they could do the distance. I'd done about run and a quarter, I want to say, in practice on the same set, and it felt good the whole time. I think it was a little bit near a crossover, to be honest, in the race. The temperature was almost high enough where it might have been better to take a set, but it was just one of those where it was that close, and I didn't want to be exposed on the kind of the outlaps and whatnot. So I felt like it was good to just keep them on, and the rest of the guys in my team, they did the same thing.
Well, either way, that is the win for you, and a big haul of championship points. You will keep that championship lead. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for your result tonight, Christian?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to Tom Abramitis for providing the setup for us to run there tonight. We kind of give him a lot of stick at work and stuff and say that he likes to make these really understeery setups and everything, but it actually, it was really on point tonight. It had a surprising amount of front end on it, and I think we were all pretty happy with it. Certainly made my life easy. I just sort of turned up and drove it this week, so that was a good thing. Thanks to him for working on that. Also, shout out to Austin and Brent. I know Austin kind of got a little bit unfortunate and he was a bit upset about the incident that happened, but these things happen, and we have a good time racing with him. So yeah, it was a fun event for all of us, and a shout out to Brent for getting the top 5 that he was after, even if he did had to try and go out there and get it twice.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. Christian Challoner, race winner there here at Long Beach. Second on the road was Justin Morton in the number 9. Wow, Justin, that was one heck of a battle you had with Tom Abramatis the whole way through.
Yeah, that was probably one of the most intense races I've had in a very long time on iRacing. That was just a crazy race.
Yeah, how did you feel going into it? Because you certainly had it cut out for you starting outside the top 5. What was your approach, especially in the opening laps where one mistake could have spelled disaster in the field?
Yeah, my goal at the start was just survive and make it the first few laps, get settled in, and then going in turn 1, I was side by side going into the into the fountain turn, and I got my nerves went way up at that point, and I was struggling for, I don't know, first 4 or 5 laps, just trying to calm myself down and just tried to make good laps and not make any mistakes.
Well, not make any mistakes you did, and eventually managed to find your way past Abramatis. What do you think was the key to getting that position in the end?
I think, well, first off, Garen was absolute legend during when I was trying to catch Tom. He kind of, he didn't let him by super easy, just played a little team games. I didn't say anything to him. He kind of just did it on his own, and that kind of just happened in open wheel racing. You have teammates help you out when they can, and I think some of it also was during the first pit stop, I took a little bit extra fuel so I could take less on the second stop. So I think that helped me get to where I was able to come out side by side with Tom there exiting pits.
Either way, nicely done, and ended up getting into second at the end after the unfortunate incident for Tom Katsadonis. So you come away with a great points haul from this round. Is there anyone you'd like to thank for that, Justin?
I'd like to thank everybody on the Forge team. Everybody put in a ton of work helping with the setup and everything. Major's Garage also for the setup. We made some changes to suit us how we wanted it, and it was a great starting point for us. Special shout out to Garen for helping me so much there in the race. I'd like to thank everybody at the majors for putting on this series, and Mike's done so much for this series this year to improve things and change stuff and make it so much more exciting to race here. I look forward to the rest of the season. Thank you guys for doing the broadcast. You do an amazing job.
Cheers, Justin, and thanks for joining us from second place. In third, meanwhile, final driver interview of the night, Tom Abramatis joins us now. Wow, Tom, that was quite the race from you. You ended up really embroiled in the fight for the podium in the early phases. All came down to strategy in the end.
Yeah. I mean, Justin drove a really good race, and when he jumped me on that pit stop, I actually thought I had it covered. Otherwise, I probably would have lifted for him because that turn 1 pit entry is so dangerous. But yeah, once he had a nose though, I did not want to kill us both in the fountain. But yeah, he drove a really good race, had tons of pace. So yeah, I didn't think once I got there, I didn't think I could pass him on pace. So I just lifted out of the gas and put a little gap between us, and yeah, but it was sweaty. It was very sweaty.
Yeah, it definitely looked like it from our perspective, especially seeing Justin Morton and how hard he was working the car on the Zoom feed as well as in sim. But I suppose, a track like Long Beach, you have to back off in some places to even have a chance of finishing.
Yeah, I mean, I was applying some pressure, and I could tell he was working really hard, but in the end, I saw either that he was going to come off the wall if he made an error, and then I'd be right there, or we'd stay status quo because, like I said, I just didn't think I was going to get him on pace. So, yeah, you really had to manage the risk there, and yeah, because I scrubbed the fence a couple times too. So I think probably everybody did. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, that it was. It's going to get even wilder at the next round of the championship in 3 or so weeks' time. We go on to dirt. We're going to be racing in the Lucas Oil off-road trucks. That's going to be a bit of an out-of-body experience, I think, for a lot of these drivers. We're very used to road and oval racing in this series. So how do you think that's going to go for you in a presumably unfamiliar format of event?
Well, I'm definitely not gonna beat Chalmer. That much I know. Having raced against him in some dirt truck stuff, but I guess it's gonna be such a wild card. I think if you just get a good start on the land rush, and we'll see. I mean, I don't have high hopes for it, but it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. You gotta probably go in knowing that you might end up on your roof, but that's okay. Like, it's just how it is.
Yeah, well, we definitely look forward to that here on SimSpeed, and potentially having a chat to you again soon. Tom, is there anyone you'd like to thank for your podium tonight?
My teammates, for sure. They were good in prep all this week. My wife for putting the kids to bed so we can race. Yeah, busy all day today at the real track, and then here. So yeah, it was great though.
All right. Thanks very much, Tom. And we'll see you again next time. And we'll certainly see you all again next time in the Majors Series at the Crandon World Cup. Really looking forward to that one. We will be racing at Crandon International Raceway. Super fun dirt track in the Lucas Oil Off-Road Pro trucks. We're doing Pro 2 and Pro 4. So... well, we'll see how that goes on the 10th of September at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of SimSpeed's broadcast coverage over the next few weeks as well. We've got plenty more races coming up. Make sure to follow us on the socials for more information on what we're doing. We are SimSpeed TV on Twitter, now X, I suppose. And we're also SimSpeed Esports Network on Facebook if you want to give us a like over there. I'm Reese Gardner, Jay Kennedy alongside me in the commentary box, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much to the team for the Majors series for putting this all on. Make sure to lend your support to the All Clear Foundation as well. See ya.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Anybody really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.